Chapter 595. Xinli Garden. At this moment, Elder Shai walked over. He frowned when he heard Chu Liuyue's words. Pavilion Master, didn't you say you were going to the zither room in Thousand View Garden to retrieve something? Chu Liuyue nodded slightly. Eldest young Master Jiang went in with Master at that time. I was waiting outside, so I didn't know what happened inside. Master was fine when he came out, but not long after he left Xinli Garden, he said he wanted to be alone. That's why I didn't come back with him. Elder Shai was puzzled. Could it be that he was hurt by what he saw? But it doesn't seem like it. The zither room used to be the Crown Princess' favorite place, so there were many traces of her there. Since the Pavilion Master was going to retrieve his things, he must have been mentally prepared. When the Pavilion Master came back today, Elder Shai had only taken a quick glance at him and felt that something was wrong. He wanted to chase after him to ask, but the Pavilion Master went to the back of the mountain, so he didn't follow him. Forget it. Don't worry about that for now. Cultivate well during this period. The date of this year's Great Sect competition has been decided. It'll be held in a month, so you must prepare well. Elder Shai said. Yi Ranran was surprised. It's always been held in February. Why is it so early this year? Elder Shai smiled bitterly. The time was decided by the major sections. Yi Ranran understood immediately and kept quiet in embarrassment. Chu Liuyue thought to himself, I knew it. Every year, West Hill would hold a great sect competition to measure each sect's strength and determine their status. The date of the competition was basically the same every year. Since it was held so early this year, it was obvious that someone was unwilling to wait any longer. The Nine-Star Alliance was not the only sect that wanted to replace Chongshu Pavilion. Elder Shai said comfortingly. It doesn't matter if it's sooner or later. Ranran, inform the disciples of the Pavilion Master and tell them to prepare to do their best. Yes. With that, Elder Shai left. Chu Liuyue and Yi Ranran didn't say anything else and went their separate ways. When Chu Liuyue walked to the door of his room, he happened to see Chang Wanzhou coming out of his room. His aura seemed to be stronger than before. Chu Liuyue asked in surprise. You used another medicinal pill? Chang Wanzhou nodded. After a while, he explained. You said that we can continue to use the pill after the efficacy of the previous one is depleted. Chu Liuyue walked over and took his wrist to check his pulse. He was even more shocked. The cold evil energy in Chang Wanzhou's body dissipated faster than he had expected, and a portion of his frozen origin power was released. She knew that Chang Wanzhou's strength would gradually increase as the process progressed, but she didn't expect it to be so fast. In truth, only a small part of the frozen origin power had been dissolved. However, the power contained within it was extremely great, no wonder he used medicinal pills again. At this rate, his body would be fully recovered in about 3 months. Chu Liuyue looked at him strangely. Chang Wanzhou's thin lips moved, and a trace of doubt appeared on his beautiful face. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm just thinking that raising a child is really expensive, Chu Liuyue teased with a smile. Chang Wanzhou pursed his lips. I'm not a child. Chu Liuyue didn't argue with him. Children always liked to say that they were adults. However, it was fortunate that she had money now. Otherwise, just helping Chang Wanzhou recuperate his body would make her bankrupt. She rubbed his head, waved her hand, and went back into the room. Cultivate well. I'll give you a gift later. Chang Wanzhou stared at her back for a long time, and a question slowly emerged in his heart. Was he really a spendthrift? If she was going to give him a gift, then he should give her a gift in return. His eyes moved slightly as he thought of something, and he turned around and went back to his room. After closing the door and windows, Chu Liuyue took out the cloud sky copper sword and placed it in front of her to examine it carefully. Standing close to it, she could feel the texture of the sword. Even if it was just placed there quietly, she could still feel the faint sharpness of its aura. The sword was bronze in color, and only the tip of the sword was faintly peacock blue. Qiaoling bronze core, Chu Luiyue muttered softly. According to Taizu, after this thing was polished, it could become the top sword in the world. Taizu's judgment was naturally not wrong, but the key was, how was she going to polish it? Although she was a triple cultivator, she had never personally refined a weapon. After thinking for a moment, she finally asked Taizu for advice. Taizu, may I ask what should we do with this Qiaoling bronze core? Taizu's voice sounded very relaxed. Haha. That's simple. We just need to find a star stone and grind out the core of this Qiaoling bronze core. Then, we'll activate Tianlei to forge it. Chu Luiyue. What did you say? She understood the first half of the sentence, but did she hear the second half wrong? Activating Tianlei, that was something that only a top expert could do. Even if her current strength wasn't weak, wanting to trigger the heavenly lightning was a fool's dream. Ahem. Actually, this matter is not that difficult. You should know that ordinary flames have no effect on the core of this Qiaoling bronze core. Only the power of Tianlei can forge it. The corner of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. I don't know. She had never even seen Qiaoling bronze before. How could she know this? Taizu seemed to have finally realized something and changed the topic. Oh, I see. Actually, it doesn't matter if you don't know. Chu Luiyue was expressionless. So you have other ways? No. Ahem, actually, I can help you activate Tianlei. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. Really? Taizu paused and suddenly sounded guilty. As long as you can withstand the power of Tianlei, Chu Luiyue suddenly had an ominous premonition. What? Do you mean? Well. Although I can help you activate Tianlei, the core of the Qiaoling bronze core has a natural defense against the power of Tianlei. If you want to forge it into a good sword, you have to let Tianlei's power completely pass through it. The best way is to use the forger's body as a bridge to receive the power of Tianlei and then transfer it to the core. Chu Luiyue put down the cloud sky copper sword with a soft sound. Taizu's voice stopped abruptly. The atmosphere was very awkward. Chu Luiyue did not move her eyebrows. Are you trying to forge a sword, or are you trying to forge me? Ahem. Girl, you can't say that. If it were anyone else, they would not be able to do it. But you are different. Now, you are the owner of the Long Yuan sword. There are a total of 81 Tianlei's power on the Long Yuan sword. Your body also has a certain tolerance for Tianlei's power. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. Then, as long as I withstand one Tianlei, I can succeed. Taizu suddenly paused. Chu Luiyue's heart sank. Great Ancestor's voice came from nowhere. At least 9. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 596. At least 9 of them. Chu Luiyue's eyelids twitched violently. She almost suspected that she had misheard. She asked seriously, "Are you serious?" Taizu fell into a brief silence again. To trigger Tianlei to forge Yuan tools, it's all like this. But don't worry, with your strength, 9 of Tianlei won't be a problem. Chu Luiyue's heart did not waver. Taizu continued, actually, this is also very beneficial for you. If you can successfully withstand the power of Tianlei, it will definitely make your foundation more stable, and your physical strength will greatly increase. Tianlei body tempering was naturally extraordinary. Chu Luiyue thought for a long time before finally spitting out a word. Okay. Since Taizu mentioned it, he must be sure that she could do it. Since that was the case, she might as well give it a try. Taizu was clearly very happy as well. Back then, he had triggered Tianlei to forge the Dragon Abyss sword. If Chu Luiyue could succeed, from a certain perspective, she could be considered to have inherited his legacy. There's a star stone that I used in the past in the Dragon Abyss sword. You can use it directly. It's best if you can find a quiet and secluded mountain peak to avoid affecting others when you trigger Tianlei. Taizu advised seriously. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment. There were actually a few small peaks around Qingyuan Mountain, but not many people went there. In addition, after the crisis at the Chongshu Pavilion, those peaks had been damaged to varying degrees. Now, they were even more deserted. It was the most suitable place to choose. There's no time like the present. It's easier to trigger the power of heaven and earth at night. How about we go today? It was night. Chu Luiyue went to Yanlin Peak, which was beside Qingyuan Mountain, alone. Although more than a year had passed, it was not difficult to see that there had been an intense battle on the peak. Countless trees on the peak were broken and collapsed. Chu Luiyue went all the way to the peak. The peak here had been shaved off, and it was smooth and neat. It was convenient for Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue looked around. After confirming that there was no problem here, she stood in the middle. Then, she searched the Dragon Abyss sword for a moment. With a thought, a huge star stone appeared in front of him, accompanied by a muffled sound. This star stone was as tall as a person. It was square in shape, and its surface was dark blue in color. Only after looking at it closely could one see the specks of light on its surface. It was as bright and moving as the night sky. There were also countless sword marks. One could imagine what this star stone had been through. A faint pressure could be felt from above. These starlight rays are actually the power of the heavenly lightning that has been left on the surface. After so many years, I thought it would be covered in dust forever. I didn't expect it to see the light of day again. The great ancestor sighed. Chu Luiyue exclaimed in her heart. Now, what you need to do is to polish the cloud sky copper sword on it until the heart appears. Taizu's voice was much deeper and more solemn. This process will consume a lot of strength and spirit. You have to be prepared. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. Then, she leaped onto the star stone. She waved her wrist, and the cloud sky copper sword appeared in her hand. She glanced up at him. Night had fallen. Dazzling starlight gradually flashed in the black sky. Gradually, it gathered into a river of stars that flowed slowly. Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. She held the sword hilt with one hand and pressed the sword body with the other. She placed it on the star stone and started polishing it. Swish! At the same time, in the Jiang residence. In the study, Jiang Yuqing put down the brush in his hand and looked at Jiang Yuji, who was standing in front of him. You came here just to tell me this? After Jiang Yuji returned home today, she shouted that she wanted to see him. However, he was troubled by the Yuchi song today, so he asked her to wait outside. After dealing with the matter and calming down, he called her in. He originally thought that it was because of some urgent matter that made her wait so long to see him. He didn't expect. It was actually because of Chu Luiyue. Jiang Yuji's face was still filled with indignation. Brother. That Chu Luiyue is too much of a bully. You have to help me get justice. Jiang Yuqing leaned back in his chair and rubbed the space between his eyebrows. He knew his sister's personality best. Usually, he always doted on her and tried his best to go along with her. However, he didn't expect her to become even worse. Just for a sword, she was actually so unforgiving. Yuji, let's not talk about how you can't be sure that person is her. Even if it's really her, you have no reason to find trouble with her. No matter if it was the previous time or this time, the other party took the money and didn't forcefully snatch it from you. Jiang Yuji said angrily. It must be her. In the entire Shiling, other than her, who else would take the initiative to go against me? Tingan said that the sword isn't even worth 10,000 white crystals, but she insisted on fighting with me. Isn't she doing this on purpose? Jiang Yuqing didn't seem to think much of it. Jiang Yuji couldn't tell, but he could see through Xiahou Tingan's thoughts. He just wanted to use this chance to get into Jiang Yuji's good books. However, he didn't expect someone to interfere and snatch his chance to curry favor with her. It even made Jiang Yuji angry. After all, he was the Xiahou family's young master and still relied on his family to support him. He didn't have so much spare money. In the end, he pushed all the blame to Chu Luiyue. He really didn't like Xiahou Tingan's actions and couldn't help but despise him. Do you listen to whatever Xiahou Tingan says? Yuji, you have to remember that he's trying to climb up the social ladder by chasing you. You can't be led by the nose by him. But how could Jiang Yuji listen to this now? All she thought about was the humiliation she suffered these 2 times. That's because he's right. Chu Luiyue is clearly going against me. Brother, you have to help me teach her a lesson. Jiang Yuqing was a little impatient. She's already entered the Chongshu Pavilion and become Yu Qisong's personal disciple. She's also famous in Xiling City. If you touch her now, you'll definitely attract a lot of attention. This matter isn't as simple as you think. Jiang Yuji widened her eyes. Brother, you're the 3rd princess's son-in-law now. Will anyone dare to say anything bad about you if you want to do anything? You're just teaching Chu Luiyue a lesson. What's there to worry about? Jiang Yuqing's gaze turned cold, and he looked at her with a knife-like gaze. Who taught you all this? Jiang Yuji shuddered and then remembered what Xiahou Tingan said previously. Now that brother is in a high position, it's time for me to be very careful. She shrunk her neck and immediately softened her tone. No one taught me. Brother, I'm your biological sister, and I'm not stupid. I know what I should say and do. I didn't mean it just now. Don't take it to heart. Jiang Yuqing's expression softened, but his voice was still very cold. Go back first. I'll treat it as if you didn't mention this. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 597. Jiang Yuji was shocked. She didn't expect that she would be rejected when she specially asked her brother to help her stand up for her. He had never been like this in the past. Brother? She quickly stepped forward and placed her hands on the table, looking at Jiang Yuqing in disbelief. I was bullied like this, and you're going to let it go just like that? She's targeting me because she doesn't care about you, brother. Brother has always been domineering when it comes to these things. Why is he suddenly acting out of character today? Jiang Yuqing looked up at her. This is a special period. Try not to cause trouble. I know you've been wronged in this matter. Go back to the warehouse and pick a few things you like. This isn't about money. Jiang Yuqing refused to let it go. By the way, didn't they say that Chu Luiyue's backer is Mu Qinghe? Brother, you just have to call Mu Qinghe over and let him teach Chu Luiyue a lesson, right? This way, not only could Chu Luiyue suffer, but she could also clarify her relationship with Mu Qinghe and let the entire West Hill know that she didn't have any backing at all. Jiang Yuqing ignored her and lowered his head to deal with his own matters. He had spoiled her too much. If he didn't teach her a good lesson, who knew what kind of trouble she would cause in the future? In the past, it didn't matter if she caused trouble, but how could she do it now? Once he and Shangguan Wan got married and Shanghai Wan ascended to the throne, he absolutely couldn't let anything happen to him. Moreover, he had been in a very bad mood recently. His Majesty had been unconscious and showed no signs of waking up. The messed Yuan gravel on Qing Yuan Mountain had been removed, and Yu Qisong was suspicious of him. He had to think of a way to cover it up. As for Shangguan Wan, she also became more and more unpredictable. These things had caused him to be in a terrible state. How could he still have the mood to help Jiang Yuji do these things? Big brother, are you really not going to help me? Jiang Yuji took a step back, her eyes filled with anger and grievance. Is it because of her face? Jiang Yuqing paused. He slowly raised his head and said expressionlessly, "What did you say?" His tone sounded calm, but his eyes were filled with anger. Unfortunately, Jiang Yuji was completely focused on herself at this moment, so how could she care about these things? I knew it. It was because of her face. Those eyes are really similar to the Empress. Pa! Jiang Yuqing suddenly slammed the table. Jiang Yuji was startled and her whole body trembled. Seeing that Jiang Yuqing's face was as cold as ice, she finally realized that she had said something wrong. Her eyes quickly turned red, and tears fell from her eyes as she felt wronged. Brother, you're actually throwing a tantrum at me because of a Chu Luiyue? All these years, big brother had never been like this. Or is it for the princess? Jiang Yuqing suddenly said in a cold voice, "Get out." Jiang Yuji's heart trembled, and she seemed to have thrown caution to the wind as she sneered. Everyone thinks that you have a deep relationship with the third princess, but if that's really the case, why did you secretly draw the princess's portrait? Do you think I don't know, Pa? A crisp slap sounded. Jiang Yuqing looked at her coldly. I think you've been spoiled too much. During this period of time, stay in the residence and don't go anywhere. Jiang Yuji's head tilted to the side from the slap, and she couldn't react in time. Jiang Yuqing had already left. Also, put your marriage with Xiahou Tingan on hold for now. Then, he directly walked out of the study. Very quickly, someone walked in from outside and wanted to invite her out. Jiang Yuji's chest tightened, and her vision turned black as she fainted. Thousands of miles away. Yan Qing rushed back, but she was still a step too late. The people from Peerless Palace had all been killed, and Rong Xiu had already brought the troops back. Yan Qing felt regretful that she couldn't laugh at Yuemo. But after seeing Yumo's swollen face, she felt more comforted. Where's His Highness? He still had Ms. Lu Yu's letter, so he naturally had to present it as soon as possible. However, Rong Xiu wasn't around. Yumo's face was swollen as he raised his chin and softly said, Peerless Palace was destroyed. The annihilation of the Peerless Palace has shaken all the divisions. Many have begun to impeach His Highness. Now, all the elders are here and waiting in the main hall. His Highness just left. Yan Qing was shocked. All the elders are here? Why are they so fast? Umo snorted. Someone has long disliked His Highness. Now that they finally have a chance, why would they let it go? Yan Qing nodded with a serious expression. This day was bound to come. Since His Highness has already taken action, he naturally made preparations. This time, we should be able to clean up quite a lot of dirty things. Taiyuan Hall. All the elders were seated on both sides. The atmosphere in the hall was cold. His Highness Saint suddenly destroyed Peerless Palace this time. He's too stubborn. Why did he do this all of a sudden? Even if Peerless Palace did something wrong, he shouldn't be so cruel. All the tribes are talking about it now. They are all waiting for His Highness to give an explanation. Although His Highness the Chosen One has a strong fist, his actions are a little too much. A voice suddenly sounded, breaking the suffocating atmosphere. His Highness Saint has arrived. When the voice sounded, everyone immediately looked up at the entrance of the hall. A tall and slender figure, draped in a black cloak, exuding a cold and tough aura, walked in. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 598. His body was clean, but his whole body was filled with a strong smell of blood. He had the appearance of a banished immortal, but he looked more like a killing god from hell. He strode over, and his footsteps fell heavily on the hearts of the crowd. Thud. 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 He finally stood in the middle of the hall. The entire hall fell silent for a moment, and everyone was stunned by the man's aura. He was so young, but he did not lose in front of so many revered elders. Many people's hearts were pounding. Although the Holy Sun was young, he was already standing at the peak. His aura was very different from before. A few years ago, when he had just ascended to the position of Holy Sun, he was still young and inexperienced. But unknowingly, even they began to feel a little afraid. This was the confidence that came from having great power and power. None of the people who had been prepared to question him opened their mouths at this moment. Rong Xiu was the first to break the silence. All of you revered elders are of noble status, and you usually live in seclusion. Why are all of you here today? Everyone came to their senses and looked at each other. That's right. They were here today to find trouble with Rong Xiu. How could they be scared the moment they saw him? An elder who was sitting closer to the seat of honor stroked his beard and spoke in a deep voice, Your Highness Holy Son, I heard that you just annihilated the entire peerless palace? Rong Xiu nodded indifferently and said casually, that's right. He admitted it so calmly that the crowd did not know how to respond. Wasn't he too self-righteous? Even if he was the Holy Son, it was too much for him to be so presumptuous. The elder's face turned cold, and his voice was even colder. Your Highness, the Peerless Palace is one of the 28 divisions, and they have never made any big mistakes. Your actions have disappointed the people of the other divisions. You are too careless. As soon as he opened his mouth, many people immediately agreed with him. That's right. Your Highness attacked them for no reason. How do you explain it to the other divisions? You've been away for a long time. Now that you've returned, you've killed everyone from the unparalleled palace. Not a single one of them was spared. It's inevitable that you'll be criticized, now that the impeachment of the various departments is flying in like snowflakes. If you still don't appear and give an explanation, I'm afraid it will be difficult to convince the public. A commotion broke out in the hall in an instant. On the surface, it looked like they were doing it for the sake of Rong Xiu's reputation and the safety of the troops. However, every word and sentence was criticizing Rong Xiu for being too impulsive and too cruel. Rong Xiu stood there quietly, as if he was listening, but also as if he wasn't. In short, there was no change in his expression from beginning to end. His reaction naturally caused many people to be dissatisfied. Your Highness? His Highness the Holy Son? Are you still listening? Now that this matter has gotten out of hand, are you not going to resolve it? The old man who spoke first asked with a stern expression. Hearing this, Rong Xiu's thin red lips curled into a smile, but it was extremely cold. As the Holy Son, I am in charge of the 28 departments. However, the impeachment of the various departments is now in the hands of Elder Tong Chuan. Everyone suddenly fell silent. Elder Tong Chuan's expression suddenly froze. He was so focused on using this opportunity to teach Rong Xiu a lesson that he forgot that he was the one who accepted the impeachment of the Holy Son. He paused for a moment, then reluctantly said, previously, Your Highness, the Holy Son, was not here. That's why the impeachment came to this old man, Rong Xiu said indifferently. I have been back for more than half a month. Other than the day when I led the troops to kill the unparalleled palace, I've been here the rest of the time. However, from beginning to end, I didn't see Elder Tong Chuan send the impeachment back. I almost thought that you were going to take full control of the situation. Elder Tong Chuan's expression became even uglier. If these words were to spread, it would affect his reputation greatly. His aggressive aura finally subsided a lot. Your Highness, you've misunderstood. Originally, this old man wanted to wait for you to come back this time and hand these impediments to you. However, because of the unparalleled palace, this old man didn't have time to take care of them. Rong Xiu smiled slightly. I deeply agree. Elder Tong Chuan is a person of virtue and prestige. He would never do such a thing. I'll have to trouble Elder Tong Chuan to return all the impediments to I later. Elder Tong Chuan could only agree. The two of them went back and forth. Under the calm surface, there was a surging undercurrent. Everyone felt the biting cold murderous intent floating in the air, and all of them shut their mouths. Rong Xiu looked around and slowly said, That's right. I naturally have my reasons for making a move on the unparalleled palace. When I was away, the unparalleled palace sent people to assassinate me. Such a crime is naturally unforgivable. Everyone looked at each other. Some were shocked, some were suspicious. Elder Tong Chuan hesitated for a moment and said, Even if it was really someone from the unparalleled palace who tried to assassinate Your Highness, it would be enough to capture that person and kill him. If not, it would be enough to deal with everyone involved as a warning. Why did you have to kill them? Your Highness' actions are too. That person has no enmity with I. He must have been ordered by someone to do this. Zhang Yufang couldn't even handle such a small matter properly. Naturally, he should be punished. Moreover, the unparalleled palace has repeatedly offended me. I tolerated them time and time again. I thought they would admit their mistakes. I didn't expect them to raise a tiger and almost cause a disaster. Rong Xiu's gaze was as cold as a knife as it swept across everyone. The unparalleled palace's intention to rebel is clear. Since they have already done this, why should I be merciful? Moreover, to say that I is ruthless. He suddenly laughed with a disdainful expression. I have always been like this. So what? His tone was calm and indifferent, but it was so reasonable that it made everyone speechless. That's right. If Rong Xiu was a merciful person, how could he be the Holy Son? Honorable Tong Chuan opened his mouth but did not say anything. Rong Xiu continued. I know that there are many people who don't agree with I. I don't care about the small matters on a daily basis. It's just that I don't care about it. But if there are really people who are interested in the position of I will be happy to fight with them. The unparalleled palace is a precedent. Everyone was shocked. Rong Xiu was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. Maybe it was because Rong Xiu had repeatedly backed down a few years ago that they had forgotten what kind of person Rong Xiu was. Until now, they were suddenly awakened. How could someone who could take the Holy Son's position be a pushover? Did he mean that, from now on, he would have to adopt a tough attitude and methods? Many people recalled the bloody scene a few years ago and looked at Honorable Elder Tong Chuan anxiously. Honorable Elder Tong Chuan took a deep breath and said, Your Highness is right. But there are many people in the division. If you continue to use such an iron fist to deal with them, it will definitely cause them to resent you. Before he could finish, a burst of laughter came from outside the hall. Haha. This is a world where strength is respected. What's wrong with Your Highness doing this? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 599. This voice was low and deep, full of energy. It seemed to have come from far away, but it was like thunder, exploding in everyone's ears. Hearing this voice, respected Elder Tong Chuan's face changed. Many people in the hall had their expressions stiffened. Like a bolt of lightning, a figure broke through the void and arrived. In the blink of an eye, he appeared at the entrance of the hall. It was a slightly plump old man. His round face had a kind smile, and his eyes were curved into slits. He strode in, his footsteps light, and his landing was silent. However, when they saw this person enter, everyone in the hall became restless. Rong Xiu looked back, his lips curling. 36 Respected Elder Ming, why are you here? I heard that Your Highness has finally cleaned up those bastards from the unparalleled palace. This old man is very happy, so I'm here to celebrate, 36 Respected Elder Ming said with a smile, not hiding the joy and excitement on his face. He had long found the unparalleled palace an eyesore. Rong Xiu had held back for so long, and finally made his move. And it was a one-hit kill. He was very happy. Your Highness, I heard that you didn't bring many people this time, and you took care of all the people from the unparalleled palace in a day. It seems that Your Highness has improved a lot recently. Everyone was even more silent. Why was 36 Respected Elder Ming's focus always different from everyone else? However, he was very strong. Among all the respected elders, he was one of the most senior. Normal people could only lower their heads in front of him. When they faced Rong Xiu, they might be able to use their status and seniority to put on airs. However, when facing 36 Respected Elder Ming, they definitely did not have the guts. Even respected Elder Tong Chuan tried his best to avoid provoking him. Rong Xiu's smile deepened. Thank you for your praise, 36 Respected Elder Ming. During this period of time, I have indeed gained quite a lot. 36 Respected Elder Ming rubbed his chin and chuckled. That's right. He had even found a wife, what else was there to say? He turned his head to look at Elder Xian Tongchuan. His face was still smiling, but his words were not as polite. Tong Chuan, back then, our ancestors single-handedly swept through 28 tribes, and millions of people submitted to him. What they relied on was strength. Why are you so against it when it comes to His Highness the Holy Son? The people of the Peerless Palace had repeatedly disobeyed their superiors. Now, they had even attempted to assassinate the Holy Son. They should have been executed long ago. Only in this way would he be able to suppress the other people who had their own thoughts. In my opinion, Your Highness's actions are not wrong at all. On the contrary, it is extremely good. Since he was the Holy Son, he should have the means and dignity of a Holy Son. In the past, Rong Xiu had many misgivings, which was why he chose to give in time and time again. But now, what was there to give in to? Respected Elder Tong Chuan opened his mouth and was about to say something when he was interrupted by 36 Respected Elder Ming. If you are dissatisfied with His Highness the Holy Son's actions, aren't you implying that our ancestor is cruel and cold-blooded? Elder Tong Chuan suddenly stood up. This old man didn't mean that. 36 Respected Elder Ming, don't randomly accuse me. Did this old man accuse you or did you accuse me? Everyone is very clear about it. What are you shouting for? 36 Respected Elder Ming said lazily. Respected Elder Tong Chuan's face flushed red. It was fine if this old thing didn't come out normally, but the moment he came out, he would cause a ruckus. Relying on his status to do whatever he wanted. And there was nothing he could do about it. 36 Respected Elder Ming's cold gaze swept across the crowd. The 28 tribes are all revered by the Holy Son. Since the Holy Son is cleaning up the sect, how could it be their turn to complain? And all of you have status. Instead of thinking about how to solve this problem, you came to question the Holy Son. Do you still have any rules? He looked amiable, but when he said those words, it was like a slap to everyone's face. Rong Xiu said warmly. 36 Respected Elder Ming, all of you are also thinking for the sake of I and the 28 tribes. I think that this kind of thing will not happen. Isn't that right, everyone? After a short moment of silence, a respected elder finally stood up and bowed deeply to Rong Xiu and 36 Respected Elder Ming. Your Highness, you don't have to explain for us. 36 Respected Elder Ming is right. We have indeed not considered this matter thoroughly. Please forgive us, Your Highness. Once someone took the lead, the rest of the people naturally followed suit. Very quickly, half of the people in the hall had expressed their attitudes and left one after another. The originally solemn and dignified battle array gradually became scattered and disorderly. Respected Elder Tong Chuan was so angry that his face turned pale, but he didn't dare to say anything. 36 Respected Elder Ming's status was higher than his, and he never acted according to common sense. He was extremely difficult to deal with. If he wasn't forced into a corner, he wouldn't have gone against him. His anger went back and forth between his chest and abdomen, making him feel very uncomfortable. In the end, seeing that this condemnation couldn't continue, he also stood up and planned to leave. Just as he was about to step out of the door, Rong Xiu's voice came from behind him, neither too fast nor too slow. Respected Elder Tong Chuan, please don't forget to send those reports back. Also, since I have already returned, then we don't need to trouble Respected Elder Tong Chuan to review the reports of the 28 divisions anymore. Respected Elder Tong Chuan's back was facing Rong Xiu, his face red and white. In the end, he could only stiffly agree and quickly leave. In the entire hall, only Rong Xiu and 36 Respected Elder Ming were left. Today, this old man came at the right time, 36 Respected Elder Ming chuckled. Those little brats are also thanks to this old man's teachings. Their cooperation is also not bad, right? Rong Xiu smiled. Thank you for coming out personally today. Some words were not suitable for him to say, but for 36 Respected Elder Ming to say it, it was twice the result with half the effort. At the very least, from today onwards, no one would dare to make an issue out of him being vicious and merciless. No matter how many people died in the unparalleled palace, no one would speak up for them. He had gained the upper hand this time, and many things would be much more convenient in the future. 36 Respected Elder Ming waved his hand indifferently. This old man has already come out of seclusion to help you for so long, this time won't make a difference. If you really want to thank me, why don't you bring your little princess back as soon as possible and let this old man take a look at her? Rong Xiu's sword-like eyebrows raised slightly. 36 Respected Elder Ming was really persistent about this matter, She still has very important things to do, so she probably won't be able to come during this period of time. Just as Rong Xiu finished speaking, he saw Yan Qing rushing in from outside. Your Highness. He had been waiting outside the entire time. When he saw that all the respected elders had come out, he thought that the matter here had already ended, so he immediately came over. Yan Qing presented a letter with both hands. Miss Lu, you said that you must open it personally. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 636. Respected Elder Ming's eyes lit up. It's a letter from your little princess. Open it and take a look. Rong Xiu's lips curled up slightly as he took the letter. His slender fingers brushed past the seal of the letter, but he suddenly paused. Rong Xiu looked up and glanced at 36. Respected Elder Ming. Do you plan to take a look at this letter too? Then, 36. Respected Elder Ming instinctively opened his mouth. Then, he noticed that it seemed inappropriate and quickly coughed. It's fine, it's fine. Since it's a letter for you, it's naturally inappropriate for me to read it. Take a look. As he spoke, he even took a step back. Rong Xiu then opened it. There was only a short line of words on the letter. Unfolding Xiang E Xian, the moon shines for thousands of miles. Signed, you. Rong Xiu held the letter and looked at that sentence. He kept it in his heart as his fingertips curled up slightly. Although it was only one sentence, it was enough for him. 36. Respected Elder Ming stood at the side and watched as Rong Xiu looked like a completely different person after he opened the letter. The murderous aura on his body dissipated completely. His eyebrows relaxed as if the ice and snow in early spring had melted. This Rong Xiu was indeed something that had never happened before. 36. Respected Elder Ming sighed in his heart and couldn't help but be even more curious. What kind of woman could make him fall in love with her so much? He wanted to take a look at the letter, but after thinking about it, he gave up. It was meaningless for an old man like him to read a love letter between a young couple. However, seeing that Rong Xiu was in such a good mood, he could make a request. That. Your Highness, the little princess has personally written a letter to you. Do you really not plan to visit her? It's better for young people to meet more. Rong Xiu read the letter twice before carefully keeping it. Then, he looked at 36. Respected Elder Ming and asked. Do you want to go together? 36. Respected Elder Ming was embarrassed for a moment after his thoughts were exposed, but he quickly nodded. That's right. Since I have nothing to do recently, why don't I go and take a look? Rong Xiu thought for a moment and smiled. She should be at her busiest right now. I'm afraid it's not a good time to go now. Of course, he missed her very much, but with his current identity, it was really a little troublesome for him to go over legitimately. A trace of disappointment flashed across 36. Respected Elder Ming's face. After pausing for a moment, he asked unwillingly, You're really not going? Rong Xiu had actually planned to wait for Chu Luiyue to settle down in West Hill before going there. However, just as he was about to nod, he saw Yan Qing's hesitant expression. Your Highness, there's something that I don't know if I should say. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes. Something to do with the West Hill? Yan Qing nodded. Just say it, Rong Xiu said calmly. The current shilling actually referred to Chu Luiyue. Since it was news about her, he naturally had to listen. Yan Qing hesitated for a moment before saying, Recently, a strange young man suddenly appeared by Miss Lu Yu's side. Rong Xiu paused. Immediately after, Yan Qing told Rong Xiu about what she saw that day. With every sentence, Rong Xiu's expression turned a little colder. Later on, I went to ask around. It was said that Miss Lu Yu met him at the Wanjing competition. It seemed, Yan Qing's voice gradually became softer. Seemed what? Rong Xiu asked calmly. Yan Qing shuddered, but he still opened his mouth to speak honestly. They seemed to hit it off very well. Miss Lu Yu seemed to use that young man as a follower. She had always done things cleanly. Basically, she could handle everything by herself. Why would she need a follower all of a sudden? Moreover, she always seemed to be polite and modest, but in fact, there were very few people who caught her eye. That young man could be so close to her. It was obvious that he had gained her trust. Rong Xiu's face was expressionless. His fingers gently rubbed the letter twice. Go and inform Umo to follow I to Xiling. Yan Qing hurriedly said, yes. When does your highness plan to set off? Before he could finish, Rong Xiu glanced at him lightly. I'll give you an hour to pack. Yan Qing's heart skipped a beat. I'll go right away. With that, Yan Qing quickly got up and left. Seeing his figure disappear in front of him, 36 respected elder Ming chuckled and teased, Your Highness, didn't you just say that the young princess consort is very busy recently and that you would visit her later? Rong Xiu's long eyelashes fluttered. It's precisely because she's busy that I will go and help her personally. It'll save me the trouble of finding a follower. 36 respected elder Ming rubbed his hands excitedly. I'll go too. Rong Xiu glanced at him. Respected elder, now that the unparalleled palace's problem has just been solved, there are still many follow-up matters that need someone to watch over. There shouldn't be anyone more suitable than you, right? 36 respected elder Ming's face instantly fell. What else could there be to do? After today's incident, Tong Chuan and the rest would have to stay put for a long time. This kid just doesn't want me to go, right? He coughed. I promise that I'll only go and take a look at the young princess consort. I definitely won't interfere. Rong Xiu seemed to have thought of something. His eyes flickered, and he finally nodded. All right. At that moment, Chu Luiyue naturally didn't know that Rong Xiu, who was thousands of miles away, was planning to rush over. Right now, all her energy was placed on the cloud sky copper sword. Night fell, and the galaxy was boundless. The power between heaven and earth constantly gathered on the star stone. Chu Luiyue was on it, polishing the long sword in her hand. Once again. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 601. The rough, low, and hoarse sound of friction sounded especially cold in the quiet night. Time passed slowly, and Chu Luiyue maintained this posture from start to finish, as though she did not know fatigue. But in reality, her arm was already extremely sore, and it did not feel like it was hers anymore. Now, she was only relying on her willpower to force herself to continue. Only when she really could not take it anymore would she stop and rest for a while. But most of the time, she was still polishing this cloud sky copper sword. A night's time passed quietly. The next morning, when the morning light shone on Chu Luiyue, she finally put down the sword in her hand and stood on the star stone to stretch her body. Crackling sounds could be heard. Chu Luiyue felt as though she had come back to life. After calming down for a while, she picked up the cloud sky copper sword again, wanting to see the results of the night's polishing. Then, the expectant expression on her face froze. Because this cloud sky copper sword had only been polished off a thin layer. Compared to its thick and broad body, it was simply negligible. If it were not for the fact that the surface was obviously much smoother, she would almost suspect that this sword had not undergone any changes at all. She widened her eyes in disbelief and looked at it over and over again. After a while, she finally accepted this fact with difficulty. She had spent the entire night polishing without any sleep and did not allow this cloud sky copper sword to have any substantial progress. Lass, what's the hurry? Do you think it's so easy to forge a good sword? Taizu seemed to have already expected Chu Luiyue's reaction and spoke slowly. Chu Luiyue exhaled. I thought, now, she finally understood what Taizu had said before. This process required a large amount of energy and mental strength. This was much more difficult than she had expected. Don't worry, yesterday was only the first day, and you are not very familiar with it. After more times, you will know how to use your strength, and it will naturally be much faster. Taizu consoled her. Thank you, Taizu, for your guidance. Chu Luiyue kept the cloud sky copper sword and the star stone, planning to come again at night. She was already prepared to fight a long battle. No matter what, she must forge this sword. Chu Luiyue returned to Mount Qingyuan and tidied up a little. Then, as usual, he went to the herb garden to look after it for a while. Without the influence of the Mestuan gravel, these herbs grew very smoothly. However, she found that her senior brothers and sisters seemed to have become very busy. In the past, they would often come to the herb garden to take a look. However, today, Chu Luiyue stayed alone in the herb garden for a long time. It was only when he was about to leave that he saw a senior sister. After chatting with his senior sister for a while, Chu Luiyue found out that they were actually preparing for the sect assembly that would be held a month later. After the news spread, all the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion were on high alert. They knew very well that this time, almost everyone was here for the Chongshu Pavilion. The Nine-Star Alliance had been coveting the position of one of the four major sects for a long time. Obviously, they had added fuel to the fire when the conference was brought forward. Only if they were strong enough and performed well enough at the sect meeting could they keep the Chongshu Pavilion's current position. Therefore, everyone entered a state of diligent cultivation. Chu Luiyue arrived at Yu Qisong's residence alone. When she arrived, he was sitting on a stone bench in the courtyard. There was a chessboard on the stone table in front of him. The chessboard looked familiar. Chu Luiyue took a closer look and recognized that the chessboard was the one that she had given to Yu Qisong. At that time, she was still young and had found her own jade material to carve. However, because the jade material was hard, it took her a lot of effort to carve it. Some of the details were very rough. Even when she thought about it later, she felt that it was too horrible to look at. She thought that he had thrown the chessboard to a corner long ago. She didn't expect that. He still had it intact. Master. She lowered her voice. Yu Qisong came back to his senses. There was still a trace of confusion in his eyes. Obviously, he was not looking at the chessboard just now. Instead, he was thinking about something. Lu Yu? You're here. Chu Luiyue walked over and carefully looked at Yu Qisong. She was slightly surprised. It had only been one night, but Yu Qisong seemed to have aged several years in an instant. His eyes were red and there were dark circles under his eyes. It seemed that he hadn't slept all night. He looked very haggard. Obviously, what happened yesterday had a great impact on him. Chu Luiyue's heart ached faintly. She quickly lowered her eyes. Master, I'm here today because I have something to give you. Yu Qisong looked at her in confusion. Chu Luiyue took out some things from the interspatial ring one after another. At first, Yu Qisong didn't react. But after he opened 2 boxes in a row, he immediately realized something and looked at Chu Luiyue in shock. These are the things you sold to 100 Herbs Building before. I've brought them back for you. As Chu Luiyue spoke, she took out the last few things. A small hill quickly piled up at their feet. Except for those that have been sold, the rest are here, Chu Luiyue said. Yu Qisong looked at those things in a daze and his lips trembled slightly. Lu Yu, you don't have to do this, Chu Luiyue said. I don't know what you don't want to give up, so I tried my best to bring all of them back. These things may be just ordinary things for others, but they may be very important to you. Since I have the ability, I should help you. Yu Qisong seemed to be choked by something. After a while, he looked at Chu Luiyue with a complicated expression. How did you get so much money? He knew that Chu Luiyue spent Mu Qinghe's money when she went to 100 Herbs Building for the first time. But now she had moved out of Mu Qinghe's house and basically had no contact with Mu Qinghe. She definitely couldn't spend Mu Qinghe's money anymore. And these things added up were worth a lot. You don't have to worry about that. If I couldn't afford it, I wouldn't have helped you bring these back. After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, she saw that Yu Qisong still seemed to be quite worried. She could only tell Yu Qisong about her extortion of Jian Fengqi. Of course, she only mentioned it briefly and didn't mention the specifics. However, Yuchi Song was still shocked after hearing it. He only knew that Jian Fengqi had always liked to play, but he didn't know that he was so good at it that he could earn so much money in just a few minutes. But after listening to Chu Luiyue, his mood was indeed much better. Looking at the things piled up at his feet, he was silent for a long time before he finally said, "If that's the case, I won't refuse. Lu Yu, I owe you a favor." Chu Luiyue shook her head gently. "Master, you and I are master and disciple. You're being too polite with me. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 602. She truly regarded Yuchi Song as her master and respected him from the bottom of her heart. She didn't have this opportunity in the past and owed him a lot. Now, she finally had the chance to repay him. Yuchi Song looked at Chu Luiyue, and his eyes seemed to ripple. He only spoke softly after a long while. After a long time, he said softly, "Lu Yu, you've just become my disciple, but you've already done so much. Logically speaking, even if they were master and disciple, they wouldn't have done so much for each other after just knowing each other for such a long time." But from the beginning, Chu Luiyue seemed to have no reservations about him and the Chongshu Pavilion. Whether it was choosing the Chongshu Pavilion among the many sects without hesitation at the beginning, or helping him redeem these things later, there was nothing to say. This was definitely not something that could be done with money. More importantly, it contained her intentions. Chu Luiyue tilted his head and smiled, his eyes curved. "Didn't Master help me a lot too? If it weren't for you, Xiao Zhou and I might not even have a place to live now." Yuchi Song's mouth curved, but he didn't say anything. According to Chu Luiyue's ability, even if he didn't help and gave them that house, they would definitely be able to find another good place to live. He wanted to ask again, but when he saw the sincere smile on Chu Luiyue's face, he suddenly couldn't say anything. In fact, when he first saw her, he also felt that she was very compatible with him. For some reason, when facing Chu Luiyue, he would always be exceptionally soft-hearted and close. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given her the whistle that he had originally planned to give to Little Crescent Moon. That was an item that he had originally planned to bring into the coffin. Although he had given one to Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou each. In fact, a large part of the reason was because of Chu Luiyue. Perhaps sometimes, the fate between two people was just this subtle. "Lu Yu, how about playing a game of chess with me?" Yuchi Song suddenly said. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. "Sure." Yuchi Song said, "Just now, I was playing by myself. You were playing the white piece. It's your turn to go now." Chu Luiyue took out a chess piece from the jar beside him. It was cool to the touch, smooth and tough. It could be seen that Yuchi Song had played a lot of Go, which was why he was able to grind the Go piece to such a state. Chu Luiyue glanced at the chessboard, thought for a moment, and then put down a white piece. Slap. The jade stones collided with each other, emitting a soft and clear sound. Yuchi Song's attention was quickly drawn to the game. The two of them exchanged blows and began to fight. After Chu Luiyue played a few chess pieces, he said in a seemingly unintentional manner, "Master, your chessboard doesn't look like an ordinary chessboard." Yuchi Song smiled with relief and reminisced. "Little Crescent Moon personally made this for me." Chu Luiyue gently nodded. After a while, he placed down another piece and said softly, "I've always heard you mention her. What kind of person is she?" This question opened Yuchi Song's mouth. As he played Go, he told Chu Luiyue about Little Crescent Moon in detail. In the past, he was unwilling to tell others about this. However, perhaps because he had experienced too much in the past 2 days, he was very tired and wanted to find someone to talk to. Thus, he subconsciously said a lot. Chu Luiyue listened to him quietly and occasionally chimed in with him. However, after listening, she realized that there were many things that she did not remember, but Yuchi Song remembered them very clearly. Her heart seemed to be surrounded by some gentleness. After experiencing those bone-chilling betrayals, such gentleness and care seemed extremely precious. The two of them played a few games of Go without realizing it. After half a day, Chu Luiyue stood up and bade farewell. In the next few days, Chu Luiyue cultivated in her room during the day and went to Yan Linfeng to sharpen the cloud sky copper sword at night. Although the speed of sharpening the sword was still very slow, she was indeed becoming more and more skilled with each passing day. In the end, her progress gradually became obvious. What made her even more gratified was that in this process, her physical strength had indeed increased by quite a bit. Hence, she was even more motivated to sharpen the cloud sky copper sword. Chu Luiyue stayed on Qingyuan Mountain just like that. Her daily life was simple and plain. Chu Luiyue's side was quiet, but Xiling City became lively. The news of Jian Fengqi spending 6,600,000 white crystal coins to buy a slave with a faint yuan body quickly spread throughout Xiling City. Mu Hongyu was a living person. There was no way she could hide. Even if she could hide it for a day or two, she would still be discovered immediately when she appeared in front of everyone in the future. Hence, Jian Fengqi didn't even think of hiding this matter. In any case, he had spent the money openly. No one could do anything to him. In the end, he didn't expect that everything would be fine outside. Instead, when he brought Mu Hongyu back to Dragon Teeth Mountain, he was attacked by his old father head-on. He had just stepped through the gate of Dragon Teeth Mountain when he was caught by Jian Shai. "Brat! You still dare to come back?" Jian Fengqi was stunned. He looked at his father who was in a rage and was stunned. "Father? What's wrong with you? What's wrong? You still have the nerve to ask me what's wrong? Why don't you look at what you've done?" As Jian Shai spoke, he continued to hit Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi wanted to run without hesitation. He couldn't return to this home. However, how could he be Jian Shai's match? Before he could run 2 steps, he was blocked. Jian Fengqi immediately admitted his guilt. "Father, I was wrong." Only then did Jian Shai stop. However, one of his hands was still in the air, as if he would continue to hit him at any time. "Speak. How did you do wrong?" Jian Fengqi thought frantically, but he still couldn't figure it out. He could only ask tentatively. "Your son has done too many wrong things. Which one are you talking about? Little brat." Jian Shai's slap finally landed fiercely. "You're usually arrogant and presumptuous, and your mother always indulges you. Now, just because you have some money, you even dare to buy a slave. You've grown up." Jian Fengqi finally understood that it was because of Mu Hongyu. He tried to hide as he explained. "Father, I did this for a reason. What other reason could there be? Don't tell me it's because of her faint yuan body. Do you think I don't know what kind of character you have? I've heard that the little girl is very beautiful. Did you go for that?" It was fine that he was usually dissolute, but now, he actually did such a thing. It was simply embarrassing. Jian Fengqi was stunned. Only then did he understand what his father meant. He asked with a strange expression, "Father, do you think I bought her back because of her appearance? What else?" Jian Shai's chest heaved as he glared and said, "If you weren't so insensible, would Lu Yu abandon our Dragon Teeth Mountain and run to the Chongshu Pavilion?" Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 603. Jian Fengqi was taken aback. What did this have to do with? Chu Luiyue chose the Chongshu Pavilion. Wasn't that her choice? What did it have to do with him? However, in Jian Shai's eyes, his dumbfounded look was a sign of guilt. He pointed at Jian Fengqi's nose and said angrily, You, not only did you hurt Lu Yu's heart, you even dragged other girls into this. How could I have a son like you?" Jian Fengqi closed his eyes with a headache. This was a big misunderstanding. "Father, where did you hear all this from? Don't you even trust your own son?" Jian Shai was heartbroken. "If you were reliable, would I, your father, be like this?" It's all your fault. Jian Fengqi was speechless. He said weakly, no matter what, you have to give me a chance to explain, right? Jian Shai finally said, get in here. Jian Fengqi was secretly glad that he had asked Mu Hongyu to wait outside the mountain gate before he came back. Otherwise, if she saw this scene, he would lose all his face. Then I'll invite Hongyu over. As he spoke, he turned around and suddenly saw that Mu Hongyu had come over. She was standing not far away and watching this scene. A disciple of Dragon Teeth Mountain was standing next to her. Jian Fengqi's eyelids twitched violently. Did she see everything just now? Jian Shai saw that he was stunned and couldn't help but sneer. Since you dared to bring her back, why don't you dare to let her come up? I've already asked someone to invite her over. With that, he walked past the stiff Jian Fengqi and walked toward Mu Hongyu. When he got closer and saw Mu Hongyu's appearance, he cursed Jian Fengqi even more fiercely in his heart. This girl looks like she's only in her teens. How dare he? Thinking of this, Jian Shai's face revealed a kind smile. He wanted to make himself look less fierce, for fear of scaring the girl. Young lady, I'm the Mountain Lord of Dragon Teeth Mountain. What's your name? Mu Hongyu was also stunned when she saw the scene when she came up. Who would have thought that Jian Fengqi, who was so arrogant and unbridled, would actually be chased and beaten up? And, this person should be Jian Fengqi's father. She hurriedly bowed. My daughter, Mu Hongyu, greets the mountain chieftain. Jian Shai saw that she was clean and well-mannered, but her body seemed to have suffered a lot of injuries. His heart was immediately filled with tenderness. Don't be nervous. With me and his mother around, that brat won't dare to bully you. If he had wronged you before, feel free to tell me. I will definitely help you teach him a lesson. Mu Hongyu blinked. That. Lord Mountain Lord, you seem to have misunderstood. Young Master Jian didn't make me feel wronged. In fact, it was all thanks to him that I was able to escape from Yuxiang Hall. Jian Shai secretly thought that this young lady was naive. Others might be interested in the faint Yuan body, but Jian Fengqi definitely wouldn't. He was only so extravagant because he had a little more money in his hands. Now, the entire West Hill was filled with rumors that Jian Fengqi had ulterior motives for being so extravagant. Otherwise, with his talent and wealth, why would he need to do this? More importantly, if Lu Yu knew about this, wouldn't he look down on Jian Fengqi even more? To think that he had painstakingly persuaded Chu Luyue to come to Dragon Teeth Mountain in Thousand View Garden. It was all ruined by this brat. Jian Shai said in a low voice, Hongyu, don't worry. After you come here, no one will dare to do anything to you. I will help you make the decision. Mu Hongyu couldn't help but glance at Jian Fengqi behind him. Your father seems to have gotten something wrong. Jian Fengqi was expressionless. It was rare for him to do a good thing, but why did it seem like he was still in the wrong? Jian Shai saw Mu Hongyu secretly looking at Jian Fengqi and thought that she was being threatened by Jian Fengqi. He was even angrier. This brat had let down Lu Yu and Mu Hongyu. Mu Hongyu saw that his face was even angrier and knew that he had misunderstood. She hurriedly said, Hill Master, you have misunderstood. Young Master Jian and I are friends. So is Lu Yu. Jian Shai was stunned. What did you say? Mu Hongyu explained, you don't know. Lu Yu and I are both from the Empire of Yaochen. We have known each other for a long time and are also from the same academy. We have a good relationship. When we were in the Empire of Yaochen, we met young Master Jian. Young Master Jian even took care of my mother's health. The more Jian Shai listened, the stranger he felt. The more he listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. Why did this sound different from what he had expected? This time, I accidentally wandered here. Coincidentally, young Master Jian and Lu Yu were both in Yuxiang Hall. Young Master Jian helped and bought me and brought me out. We just came back from Lu Yu's place. Jian Shai reacted for a moment, and his expression immediately became very interesting. This meant that, his son didn't go out to harm little girls, but went to help a friend instead? Then didn't he just, Jian Shai slowly asked, you? Is what you said true? Mu Hongyu hurriedly nodded. What I said just now was not a lie. You have really misunderstood young Master Jian this time. Jian Shai's neck stiffened as he turned to look at Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi suddenly smiled coldly. Did you hear that? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 604. Jian Shai coughed hard with his fist against his lips. So, you really did it to help. Hongyu? Jian Fengqi's smile became colder. If you don't believe me, you can go to the Chongshu Pavilion and ask Chu Luiyue now. Jian Shai finally felt guilty. It seems, that I really misunderstood my son. Then, before this, you and Lu Yu, Jian Fengqi's eyebrows twitched. He suddenly had an ominous premonition. You misunderstood me and her. You even said that I invited her to Dragon Teeth Mountain. What's going on? Jian Shai laughed. Ah. Nothing. I just casually chatted with Lu Yu. Jian Fengqi didn't believe him. He took 2 steps forward and looked at his father. Did you say something that you shouldn't have? Jian Shai avoided his gaze. That. Actually, I didn't say anything. I just thought that the girl was smart, pretty, and knowledgeable. I thought that she would be a good daughter-in-law. But don't worry, I didn't say anything. Dad? Jian Fengqi's face was full of disbelief. He subconsciously glanced at Mu Hongyu next to him. Chu Luiyue and I are really just friends. He had only been away for a while. How did such a big misunderstanding happen? His father actually thought that he liked Chu Luiyue? And he even wanted her to be his daughter-in-law? Jian Fengqi knew his father too well. If he really thought so, he could only imagine what he said to Chu Luiyue that day. Thinking of this scene, Jian Fengqi was so embarrassed that he had goosebumps all over his body. Jian Shai muttered strangely. Since you are just friends, why didn't she come to Dragon Teeth Mountain? Jian Fengqi held his forehead in despair. He felt that he had no face to go out and see Chu Luiyue again. And Mu Hongyu, Jian Fengqi, who had lived a carefree and happy life for more than 20 years, finally experienced the feeling of being unable to sit still. He wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide in. And all of this was thanks to his father. Jian Shai glanced at Mu Hongyu and suddenly remembered something. Then, you brought Mu Hongyu back today because, Jian Fengqi's voice was as cold as ice. I thought that you would be happy to accept a disciple with a faint yuan body. Now, it seems that I was wrong. Jian Shai was stunned for a moment and immediately reacted. He was surprised and happy. Hongyu is going to join Dragon Teeth Mountains? That's great. Then, he quickly scanned Mu Hongyu from head to toe. A faint body. This girl had a virtual yuan body. This was something that many people begged for but couldn't get. If she could really become his disciple, how much face would she have when she went out? Those old bastards outside must be envious to death. After all this time, it turned out that Jian Fengqi was not happy for him, but for this. Jian Shai was overjoyed and nodded repeatedly. Good. Why don't you become my disciple today? Today. Jian Fengqi heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Originally, he was a little worried that his father would be apprehensive because of Mu Hongyu's identity as a slave. But now, it seemed that there was no problem. However, his expression did not change. He only said coldly, "Aren't you a little too impatient? It's not like you haven't accepted a disciple before. Do you have to be so excited?" Jian Shai thought about it and agreed. Mu Hongyu had just arrived. He did not want to scare her. Thinking of this, he smiled at Mu Hongyu and said, Hongyu. Today is your first time in Dragon Teeth Mountain. Why don't you let this kid show you around? Mu Hongyu did not take the previous misunderstanding to heart. Seeing that Jian Shai was very warm and polite to her, she was very happy. She smiled brightly, and her almond-shaped eyes sparkled. Thank you very much, Hill Master. Jian Shai exhorted a few more times before leaving. Jian Fengqi and Mu Hongyu were left looking at each other. Jian Fengqi thought for a moment and said, I'll show you around and let you familiarize yourself with the place. I'll also ask them to tidy up a place for you to stay. Mu Hongyu nodded with a sincere face. Young Master Jian, you and Hill Master are great people. I really don't know how to thank you. Jian Fengqi chuckled and reached out his hand. He originally wanted to use the bone fan to hit her head, but when he saw her thin face, his heart skipped a beat. He switched to his other hand and flicked his finger. Then you can only thank me. 100 Herbs Building. On the 3rd floor. Master, this is Miss Lu Yu's private room. Yu Ling stood at the side with his shoulders slightly bowed and said respectfully. His face looked calm as usual, but his slightly tensed chin showed his nervousness at this time. He never expected that his master would suddenly come to West Hill at this time. Didn't he say that he wouldn't be coming in the near future and asked him to take care of everything? But in the blink of an eye, he came directly. When he saw his master here today, he was so scared that his heart almost jumped out of his chest. Since I received your message last time, I've prepared this room, but Miss Lu Yu hasn't been here yet. Rong Xiu, who was dressed in white, heard this and asked, what did she buy when she came here? Yu Ling immediately said, Miss Lu Yu came here twice. The first time she bought, he thought that his master was just asking casually. After he said a few things, he saw that his master didn't intend to interrupt him, so he had to bite the bullet and continue. Fortunately, when he realized that his master treated Chu Luyue differently, he was particularly concerned about her. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to speak now. It wasn't until Yu Ling's mouth was dry that he told his master everything. A lot of sweat appeared on his forehead. His master didn't get impatient at all and listened to him from beginning to end. These are all the things that Miss Lu Yu bought when she came here, Rong Xiu thought for a moment and said, there seem to be a lot of things that belong to the pavilion master of Chongshu Pavilion, Yuqi Song. Yu Ling was slightly surprised. He didn't expect his master to know about this. He quickly said, Master is wise. The last time Miss Lu Yu came, she did buy all the things left by Elder Song. Now that she was a disciple of Chongshu Pavilion, she must have bought these things to return to Yuqi Song. In that case, Yuqi Song's luck was really good. Rong Xiu raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Sure enough. This was indeed what she would do. Yu Ling sensed that his master's mood seemed to be better than when he first came, but he didn't dare to ask more. At this moment, there was a sudden noise outside. He could vaguely hear the name, Chu Luyue. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes slightly. Yu Ling's heart sank and he immediately said, Master, it seems that someone is making trouble downstairs. I'll go down and take a look. Rong Xiu nodded gently. Yu Ling hurriedly rushed down. When he reached the 1st floor, he saw a young woman standing in the middle of the exhibition hall. She said impatiently, I want all the things that Chu Luyue bought from here for the first time. Don't you understand human language? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 605. Yu Ling knew this woman. Jianghu. Why did she suddenly cause trouble here? Yu Ling frowned. It was fine if she wanted to cause trouble, but why did she have to find trouble with Chu Luyue? And she chose to do it today. Right now, Master was up there and could hear everything clearly. Thinking of this, Yu Ling felt a chill down his spine and walked over quickly. 4th Miss Jiang, what are you doing? Hearing the voice, Jiang Yuji looked up and her expression changed slightly. Why was Yu Ling, the manager of 100 Herbs Building, here today? Didn't they say that he rarely appeared? Now that he was here, this matter would be a little troublesome. Jiang Yuji was somewhat afraid of Yu Ling, so she immediately restrained herself. Manager Yu. So you're here, that's great. As she spoke, she pointed to the crystal cabinet and said, "I'm here today to buy something." "But the servant of your 100 Herbs building actually said that you don't have it? Is this how the 100 Herbs building does business now?" Yuling smiled slightly. "When I came down just now, I seem to have heard 4th Miss Jiang say that you want to buy the same thing as Miss Chu Luiyue?" "That's right." Ever since Jiang Yuji was slapped by Jiang Yucheng, she had been locked up in the residence for several days. Today, she finally begged her mother to let her out, so she went straight to 100 Herbs building. Since her brother was unwilling to help, she would do it herself. Yuling's smile remained unchanged. "4th Miss Jiang, I wonder, do you know what Miss Chu bought here?" Jiang Yuji sneered, "Are you afraid that I can't afford it?" She had a small treasury that she had hidden for many years, and she had asked her mother for a lot of money. Previously, she didn't snatch it from Chu Luiyue because she was afraid that her father would find out and scold her for wasting money. But now, she didn't think so much about it. She had even been slapped in the face. What else was there to worry about? Yuling's expression changed imperceptibly. "Of course not. 4th Miss Jiang is of noble birth. How can you not even take out this little money? It's just that I still want to make it clear to you. The first time Miss Chu came, she spent 90,000 white crystal coins. The second time, she spent more than 1,000,000. You want to buy the same thing as her? Which time are you referring to?" Jiang Yuji's expression froze. What? Yuling thought to himself, this Jiang Yuji is really spoiled by her family. She wants to come out to cause trouble, but she doesn't even know how much confidence the other party has. If she had asked around, she would have found out how much Chu Luiyue had spent on this place. She would not have been so impulsive. Not to mention Jiang Yuji, even Jiang Yucheng might not be so extravagant as to throw out 1,000,000 white crystal coins so casually. Jiang Yuji really didn't know. She vaguely heard that Chu Luiyue had spent a lot of money in the 100 Herbs building, but she never expected that she had spent so much. How could a lowly woman from outside Heaven's canopy have so much money? Even if he had Mu Qinghe as his backer, 1,000,000 was still too much. She hesitated for a moment and could only brace herself. The first time, it was that time. She snatched what I wanted. Let's do it according to that time, 90,000 white crystal coins. If she pooled her money together, she could still take it out. Yuling glanced at the servant next to him. 4th Miss Jiang has already made it very clear. Why aren't you going to prepare it? The servant looked troubled. Manager, the stock in the 100 Herbs building is only enough for Miss Chu Luiyue to pick up next time, so I'm afraid we can't sell it to 4th Miss Jiang now. The manager had said before that the things Miss Chu wanted must be prepared in advance and no one could touch them. Now that Jiang Yuji wanted to buy it, how could they give it to her? Yuling nodded in understanding. Jiang Yuji was even angrier when she heard this. Your store clearly has it. I want to buy it, but you don't sell it? What kind of logic is this? Yuling explained with a smile. 4th Miss Jiang, you don't know. Miss Chu is a black gold card VIP of our 100 Herbs building. According to the rules, we naturally have to prioritize her. As for you, I can only apologize to you. How about this, if you have other things that you want, we can give you a discount. I don't want other things. I only want those from Chu Luiyue. The smile on Yuling's face faded a little. Jiang Yuji was not a celestial physician. There was no genius in this field in the entire Jiang mansion. What use would she have for these precious medicinal herbs? It was obvious that she was here to make trouble. 4th Miss Jiang's request, I'm sorry but I can't comply with it. Yuling said lightly. If you really need it, then I'll make a list for you later. You can buy it from other places in Xiling City. Jiang Yuji's voice became a little shrill. Manager, are you chasing away a guest? How can that be? Our 100 Herbs building welcomes you very much. But we really can't satisfy your request, so, there seemed to be a ball of anger burning in Jiang Yuji's chest. Nice words. Wasn't it because of Chu Luiyue? During this period of time, every time she encountered something related to Chu Luiyue, she would be especially unlucky. It was as if Chu Luiyue was born to be her nemesis. She looked at Yu Ling and suddenly sneered. Manager Yu, do you think that Chu Luiyue has Mu Qinghe's backing? Or even that Mu Qinghe will marry Chu Luiyue and become the mistress of the Mu Mansion? Yu Ling's heart skipped a beat. Master is up there. His expression immediately became serious. Fourth Miss Jiang, please be careful with your words. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 606. Be careful with my words. Didn't these words come from your 100 Herbs building? Jiang Yuji did not notice that Yu Ling's expression was off. Instead, she thought that she had hit the nail on the head. I remember the first time she came to 100 Herbs building, she brought Duan Ziyu with her. He is Mu Qinghe's confidant. At that time, didn't you also refuse to sell the Xidigarba coral to me because of Duan Ziyu? After that, there was a saying that Chu Luiyue's backer was Mu Qinghe. Later, there was a rumor that she had a close relationship with Jian Fengqi. Chu Luiyue had only been in Xiling for less than a month, but she had already built a relationship with the two of them. She was really capable. Yu Ling said coldly. Fourth young mistress Jiang. If I remember correctly, Miss Chu clearly bid more than you that day, so she took the Xidigarba coral in the end. Jiang Yuji's expression instantly became much uglier. But she still forced herself to say. In short, I'm here today to tell you that Chu Luiyue has nothing to do with Mu Qinghe. She has no backer in Xiling City at all. She is just a lowly woman from outside heaven's canopy. Yu Ling heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the first half of the sentence. But when he heard the second half, all the hair on his body stood on end. He took a step forward and stared at Jiang Yuji. His voice was cold and harsh. Fourth young mistress Jiang, please take back your words. Jiang Yuji sneered disapprovingly. Why, General Manager you don't believe me? Why don't we invite Vice Admiral Mu over and ask him personally? Yu Ling secretly cursed Jiang Yuji for being brainless. It was fine if she wanted to die, but she didn't want to drag him down. We already knew that Miss Chu has nothing to do with the Mu clan and Vice Admiral Mu. But now she is an honored guest of 100 Herbs building, so she can't be humiliated like this. If fourth young mistress Jiang can bear the consequences of offending 100 Herbs building, please continue. Jiang Yuji was stunned for a moment before she realized what he meant. Is he saying? He knew that Chu Luiyue doesn't have any backing, but he's protecting her because she's spent a lot of money here? Looking at Yu Ling's cold expression, she couldn't help but shudder in her heart. She was actually a little afraid. She had only spoken the truth. Why did Yu Ling have such a big reaction? From the looks of it, he actually wanted to make a move on her. Although she was used to being arrogant and domineering, she was still too immature compared to people like Yu Ling. She couldn't show off at all. I'm just here to tell you. She's not that powerful. Why do you have to treat her like this? Jiang Yuji was both furious and confused. In terms of status, she was much higher than Chu Luiyue. So what if Chu Luiyue had Mu Qinghe as his backer? Mu Qinghe was her brother's subordinate. But now, Yu Ling was willing to offend her for Chu Luiyue? Are you kidding me? Yu Ling was also about to go crazy. He didn't check the almanac when he went out today. He actually provoked such an idiot. Chu Luiyue didn't have any backers in West Hill, but he did tens of thousands of miles away. And more importantly, that top-notch backer was now standing upstairs. Master must have seen all of this. At the thought of this, Yu Ling even had the urge to kill Jiang Yuji. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, How 100 Herbs building does business is not for fourth Miss Jiang to tell us what to do. Men, please escort fourth Miss Jiang out. Jiang Yuji pointed at herself in disbelief. You're chasing me out? Yu Ling curled his lips without a smile. It doesn't matter what you say outside, but in the territory of 100 Herbs building, no one is allowed to humiliate a black gold card VIP. Fourth Miss Jiang, sorry for the offense." As he spoke, he looked coldly at the servants and guards at the side. "What are you waiting for?" As soon as the order was given, everyone rushed over. The manager today was so scary. He was even scarier than when he taught those talkative women a lesson that day. Everyone was anxious and hurriedly carried Jiang Yuji out. Jiang Yuji was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. "Yu Ling! How dare you treat me like this? My brother will never let you off." Yu Ling walked to the door and looked down at Jiang Yuji with a smile. "Fourth Miss Jiang, our rules have always been like this. Even if eldest young Master Jiang is here, it's the same. Eldest young Master Jiang has been very low-key recently. If he knows about today's matter, who knows who he will find trouble with." Jiang Yuji's heart sank. She suddenly panicked. Yes. She had almost forgotten that her brother had warned her not to cause any more trouble. He still didn't know that she had secretly run out. If today's news reached his ears, he would definitely not let her off easily. Thinking of this, she became afraid. Yu Ling continued. "Oh, right. Fourth Miss Jiang, you don't have to come anymore. Our 100 Herbs building will no longer do business with you from now on. For the sake of eldest young Master Jiang, we won't implicate your family. However, I hope that fourth Miss Jiang will be more careful with your words and actions in the future. Otherwise, you won't know when you cause trouble for yourself." With that, he turned around and walked into the building, leaving Jiang Yuji standing there in a daze. What did he mean by that just now? How dare he treat me like this? Because of anger, Jiang Yuji's face became a little distorted. She wanted to rush in immediately, but Yu Ling's words just now kept echoing in her mind. She stood there for a long time until the people around her began to point at her. Finally, she fled in a sorry state. Yu Ling returned to the third floor and saw Rong Xiu sitting quietly in the room. His face was calm, and no emotions could be seen. Yu Ling was about to speak when he suddenly heard him say, "It seems that she has been having a lot of fun in West Hill during this period." Yu Ling suddenly shuddered. "Master. Actually, these are all rumors. You also know that 3 people make a tiger. Miss Lu Yu is actually..." Rong Xiu raised his eyes and looked at him calmly. "Remember, except in front of her, call her madam at all times. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 607. Yu Ling was shocked. In an instant, his face, which had always been expressionless, had a variety of expressions. "Master?" Rong Xiu asked faintly, "Why? Don't you understand?" Yu Ling felt a chill all over his body. He quickly controlled his expression and lowered his head. "I understand." Yan Qing, who was standing next to him, looked at him sympathetically. How pitiful. He couldn't see his master all year round. It was indeed difficult for him to face such a big matter as soon as he saw his master. Yu Ling was sweating all over. I see. When he received the news before, he just felt that his master treated Chu Luyue differently, but he didn't expect it to be to such an extent. When he thought of how Jiang Yuji actually said those words in front of his master just now, this fourth Miss Jiang would probably be in trouble in the future. I heard that when she came here before, she was accompanied by someone? Rong Xiu suddenly asked. Yu Ling subconsciously said, "You mean Duan Ziyu?" Rong Xiu's hand tapped on the table twice. Yu Ling's heart turned cold. Yan Qing desperately winked at him. After a while, Yu Ling reacted. "You mean Chang Wanzhou?" Rong Xiu's expression didn't change, but the aura on his body turned cold. Yu Ling thought to himself that he was indeed talking about him. Seeing that his master seemed to have become dangerous, Yu Ling couldn't care less. He hurriedly told him everything he knew about Chang Wanzhou. As he spoke, he found that the expression on his master's face became more indifferent. He felt a little nervous and hurriedly added, "I think Lu Madam treats Chang Wanzhou like a child, Rong Xiu suddenly smiled, and his thin lips curved up as he said with deep meaning, "You're right." So, most of the medicinal materials she bought from here before were for Chang Wanzhou? Yu Ling was stunned. If he denied it, he would be lying to his master. If he admitted it, he would be putting his neck under the knife. It was not easy to choose either path. I'm not very sure. After all, Madam is a celestial physician. It's normal for her to need medicinal materials. Maybe she wants to refine medicine for herself. Rong Xiu's smile deepened. Yu Ling immediately shut his mouth. Did she say when she would come back for medicinal materials? Yu Ling. Tomorrow. Rong Xiu leaned against the chair and gently closed his eyes. Tomorrow then. Why wait until tomorrow? Yu Ling was curious in his heart, but he didn't dare to ask. So, he could only respond respectfully. Yes. On the other side, after Jiang Yuji was chased out of the 100 Herbs building, she was filled with anger and despondent. She walked aimlessly on the street. As he walked, he kept thinking about the things that had happened in this world. No matter how she thought about it, it was all because of Chu Luiyue that she had to suffer all these grievances again and again. Her brother's warning kept echoing in her mind. She bit her lip. Her eyes were red. It was fine if others didn't help her, but even her brother hit her for Chu Luiyue. Wasn't it because she hit the nail on the head? The third princess didn't know, but she knew very well. After waiting for that person to die, another Chu Luiyue popped up. She was like a ghost. As she walked, Jiang Yuji suddenly stopped. She gritted her teeth, turned around, and walked toward the palace. Her brother refused to help, and 100 Herbs building protected Chu Luiyue in all kinds of ways. Now, there was only one person who could teach Chu Luiyue a lesson, the third princess, Sheng Guanwan. Sheng Guanwan hated Sheng Guanyu. Now that she saw Chu Luiyue who was similar to her, it would be strange if Sheng Guanwan liked Chu Luiyue. Now that the third princess was second only to one person, even her brother had to listen to her. If Sheng Guanwan punished Chu Luiyue, no one could say anything. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that this method was feasible. She quickened her steps. However, she had just walked a short distance when a masked man suddenly appeared in front of her. Alarm bells went off in her heart. He didn't come with good intentions. She quickly looked around and realized that she had unknowingly walked into a remote alley. This masked man just happened to block her way here. She had sneaked out today and didn't dare to bring any guards. Now, she was alone. Who are you? What do you want? Jiang Yuji asked fiercely. She could feel that the masked man was very powerful. If he wanted to do anything to her, she wouldn't even have the chance to escape. The masked man didn't say anything. He just walked toward her. Jiang Yuji was afraid and unconsciously retreated. Don't come over. Let me tell you, I'm the fourth young miss of the Jiang residence. The masked man said in a hoarse voice. You're the one I'm looking for. After saying that, his figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Jiang Yuji cried out in surprise. In the next moment, the masked man appeared in front of her. She subconsciously gathered the force in her body and threw a punch. The masked man raised his hand and easily blocked her fist. Jiang Yuji's expression changed. However, the masked man had already grabbed her wrist tightly. He took a step forward and viciously bent it. Ah! Jiang Yuji cried out in pain and her body immediately went limp on the ground. The masked man continued to attack, beating Jiang Yuji until she couldn't retaliate and could only take it. It was as if the masked man deliberately chose the most painful part of her body to hit. She was in so much pain that her face turned pale. In the end, she couldn't even make a sound of pain. After some time, she finally rolled her eyes and fainted. The masked man stopped and looked at her condescendingly. So weak, with such little strength, she actually dared to be so arrogant in Xiling City. It was obvious that she had been spoiled by her family. The masked man looked at the bruised and swollen Jiang Yuji with satisfaction and nodded in satisfaction. Finally, there was someone like him, although he was the one who hit her. Looking at her like this made him feel inexplicably refreshed. "I'll let you live today," the masked man chuckled. This time, she had really offended someone she shouldn't have. It would be fine if Master wanted to give her a quick death, but he turned around and left. Jiang Yuji, who was lying unconscious on the ground, slowly opened her eyes. However, in the next moment, the masked man who had left appeared again. Jiang Yuji was so scared that her heart almost jumped out of her chest. The masked man suddenly laughed. "You can watch more if you want. After all, today is just the beginning." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 608. Jiang Yuji, who was caught red-handed, was filled with panic and fear. In an instant, she felt that her little thoughts had been seen through by the other party. She opened her mouth to speak, but she choked on the blood in her mouth and coughed violently. The masked man sneered. With Jiang Yuji's little combat power, it was not easy for her to live so arrogantly until now. He whistled and quickly disappeared. This time, Jiang Yuji waited for a long time with her heart hanging in the air. Only when she was sure that the masked man would not return did she stand up shakily. The injuries on her body and the fear in her heart made her legs go weak. She could only barely stand by leaning against the wall. She was filled with hatred and fear. Just now, the masked man said that this was just the beginning. What did he mean? She stood there for a long time. After her mood gradually calmed down, she finally regained some rationality. Now that she was covered in injuries and her face and body were covered in blood, she definitely could not enter the palace. She subconsciously wanted to go home. But now that she was like this, if her brother found out, he would probably reprimand her again. Jiang Yuji thought about it and squatted down. She stayed in this secluded alley until the sky darkened. Then, she began to walk home. Jiang residence. In the room, Jiang Yuqing sat cross-legged on the bed. His shoulders were slightly drooped, and his hands were on his knees with his palms facing up. A fist-sized blood ball was floating in front of him. His eyes were fixed on the ball of blood as he circulated the origin power around his body. It transformed into thin threads that extended toward the ball of blood. The blood ball shook, and the liquid inside began to slowly flow along the thin lines into Jiang Yuqing's body. The aura on his body began to grow stronger rapidly. At the same time, his skin also rapidly turned red. There seemed to be something surging under his skin, which looked very strange. His face also became ferocious, as if he was enduring great pain. After an unknown period of time, the liquid in the blood ball finally entered Jiang Yuqing's body. He suddenly raised his head. Something quickly surged down from the skin on his neck and finally disappeared into his clothes. Ugh, a strange and painful groan came from his throat. After a while, the blood on his face gradually faded, and he slowly opened his eyes. And at this time, the aura on his body had actually returned to the middle of the 8th level. He lowered his head and looked at his hands. He could feel the aura in his body becoming stronger again. He let out a long sigh. It's finally over. This process was very painful, and it also damaged his body to a certain extent. However, in order to prevent Yuqi Song from discovering his abnormality, he could only do this. However, this thing could only last for a limited amount of time. He had to get rid of the Yuqi Song as soon as possible. After all, he didn't want to delay his true cultivation because of a Yuqi Song. At the sect meeting, perhaps he would be able to. He stood up and walked out the door. The sky had already darkened, and the moon hung high in the sky. Sun Qi was guarding the door. "Young master," Jiang Yuqing asked. "How long has it been?" Sun Qi said, 2 days and 2 nights. "Did anyone come by during this period? You said earlier that you wanted to cultivate, so no one came to disturb you these 2 days." As Sun Qi spoke, he glanced at him and said, "Everything is normal. Everything else is normal." Jiang Yuqing heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Shangguan Wan and Yuqi Song don't fight, there's basically nothing to worry about. His expression changed slightly, and he suddenly remembered that he had locked Jiang Yuji up for a few days. Fourth Missy didn't come either? No. Xiahou Tingan came every day, but Fourth Missy didn't come out to see him. Every time, he would leave after sitting for a while. Jiang Yuqing thought to himself that it was indeed so. Previously, I sent the Xiahou family a message saying that the two families' marriage discussions were temporarily suspended. The Xiahou family naturally couldn't sit still. However, Xiahou Tingan learned his lesson this time. It must have been that sly old fox, Xiahou Rong, who gave him some pointers. Jiang Yuqing had long expected them to be like this, so he wasn't shocked at all. However, Jiang Yuji really didn't come out, which surprised him. It seems like she's really reflecting. But it could also be that her heart was hurt by my slap. A few days had passed, and the anger in Jiang Yuqing's heart had long dissipated. Thinking of the scene back then, he also felt that he had gone overboard. I doted on Jiang Yuji since she was young. In the past, I didn't even say anything harsh to her, but now, I personally slapped her. She was his biological sister after all, so Jiang Yuqing couldn't help but feel heartache. I'll go and see her. Jiang Yuqing kept thinking about how to compensate Jiang Yuji the entire way. After this incident, she should have learned her lesson. In the future, as long as she's smarter and knows what to do and what not to do, it's fine. If she really likes Xiahou Tingan, it's not like she can't continue. He walked to the door and directly asked, "How are you?" Fourth Missy. When the two servants standing at the door saw Jiang Yuqing, they were instantly shocked. "Greetings, eldest young master." Even though it was already late, Jiang Yuqing could still clearly see the fear that flashed across their faces. He slightly knitted his brows and glanced at the tightly shut door. "Where's she?" "She heard that I'm coming, but she didn't come out to welcome me." The two servants hurriedly said, "Eldest young master, eldest young master. Fourth Missy isn't feeling well today, so she's already asleep. Why, you can come back tomorrow, right?" Sun Chi went forward and hollered. "How dare you? When is it your turn to order eldest young master around?" The two servants were shocked as they hurriedly knelt down and begged for mercy. A trace of suspicion surfaced in Jiang Yuqing's heart. It's not time for her to sleep yet. Why is she asleep? She's not feeling well. What exactly is going on? The two servants stuttered and couldn't even speak properly. Jiang Yuqing had already guessed something and coldly said, "Open the door." "Open the door immediately." The two servants were shocked and didn't dare to move. Jiang Yuqing impatiently went forward, kicked the door open, and walked in. He searched the room but didn't see Jiang Yuji's figure. His face quickly darkened. Where did Fourth Missy go? The two servants knelt on the ground and trembled. Seeing that the matter had been exposed and that eldest young master was so angry, they could only explain the cause and effect of the matter. After listening, Jiang Yuqing's aura seemed to freeze. He thought that she would be more restrained in the future after learning her lesson this time. He didn't expect that she still didn't repent. What could she do outside? Now that she was like this, if she did anything stupid again, at this moment, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside. Jiang Yuqing got up and walked outside. The door suddenly opened. When he saw the familiar figure in the courtyard, he sneered. "You still know to come back?" Jiang Yuji's footsteps suddenly froze. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 609. The courtyard fell into dead silence. Jiang Yuji was shocked and flustered. Why did brother suddenly come? Didn't he say that he had something to do these few days? How long has he been waiting here? Most importantly, did he know what had happened to her today? In an instant, many thoughts flashed through Jiang Yuji's mind. She didn't know how to deal with it. Speak. Jiang Yuqing shouted impatiently. Where did you go today? Jiang Yuji heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that he still didn't know. She stood in the middle of the courtyard, trying her best to hide her figure and face in the dark night. As long as brother didn't see her like this, there was still hope to fool him. I went to the 100 Herbs building today, she stammered. Jiang Yuqing frowned. What were you doing there? I just wanted to buy some medicinal herbs. I didn't manage to buy the Xidigarba coral I liked last time. I wanted to see if there was anything else I liked, Jiang Yuji said timidly. Hearing this, Jiang Yuqing's anger subsided a little. What do you want? Just say it. But you really shouldn't sneak out like this. I'll let you off this time. There won't be a next time. Jiang Yuji hurriedly said, Thank you, brother. Jiang Yuqing looked at her and narrowed his eyes. Why are you standing so far away? Come forward and talk. Jiang Yuji didn't move. Jiang Yuqing wanted to reprimand her, but seeing Jiang Yuji's timid and fearful appearance, he thought that she was still brooding over the slap from before. He walked over to Jiang Yuji and said in a slow voice, Don't worry. Don't worry, in the future. I won't hit you again. As long as you listen to me. Jiang Yuji suddenly took a step back. Jiang Yuqing finally realized that something was wrong. He frowned and quickly walked forward. Listen, a face full of bruises appeared in front of him. Jiang Yuqing was shocked. What's wrong with you? Who beat you up like this? Seeing that she couldn't hide it any longer, Jiang Yuji could only tell Jiang Yuqing about how the masked man had blocked her in the alley and beaten her up. However, she left out the part where she had a dispute with Yu Ling in the 100 Herbs building. She only said that she had strolled around the 100 Herbs building and was beaten up as soon as she came out. Jiang Yuqing's face was so gloomy that it seemed like water could drip from it. His eyes were burning with anger. This was his, Jiang Yuqing's, younger sister. Who in Xiling City didn't know about it? It wasn't a problem for him to teach her a lesson himself, but if others were to bully her, then he would definitely not allow it. What's more, the other party had covered his face. Obviously, he didn't want to reveal his identity. This meant that he had come prepared. How big was that person? Did he talk to you? Do you feel any familiarity with him? Jiang Yuji shook her head as tears fell from her eyes. That person deliberately changed his tone. I can't recognize him at all. Moreover, looking at that figure, I don't think I've seen him before. She really didn't know that person. Jiang Yuqing stared at her for a while. Why would someone target you out of the blue? What exactly did you do when you went out today? Jiang Yuji looked away guiltily and cried even more fiercely. What else can I do? I just came out for a walk, and I was bullied just like that. Moreover, that person even said that this was just the beginning. Brother, I'm so scared. Seeing her like this, Jiang Yuqing felt pity in his heart and suppressed the trace of suspicion in his heart. Hearing the second half of her sentence, the anger in his heart burned even more. Who exactly was this person? How could he be so arrogant? He actually dared to lay his hands on Jiang Yuqing's younger sister in West Hill. Moreover, he actually dared to threaten her like this. Yuji, go back and rest well. I will investigate this matter myself. When I find out who this person is, I will definitely not let him off easily. He paused for a moment, glanced at Jiang Yuji's miserable face, and said in a deep voice, Don't go out during this period of time. Jiang Yuji wanted to cover her face, but the moment she touched it, it would be incomparably painful. She could only endure the embarrassment and grievance and nod. After comforting Jiang Yuqing left. As soon as he left the courtyard, he said, Sun Qi, go and investigate immediately what happened today. Yes. Remember, focus on investigating the 100 Herbs building. Yes, eldest young master. Night. At the top of Yanlin Peak. Scratch. Scratch. The sound of a sword being sharpened was especially clear in the quiet night. Chu Luyue was sitting cross-legged on the star stone, sharpening the cloud sky copper sword. After a few days, her movements had clearly become much more proficient, and she was even more clear about how to exert strength. This way, her efficiency had increased by a lot. More importantly, her physical strength had indeed become much stronger. On the first day, she had to rest almost every hour. On the second day, her arms and shoulders were very sore. But now, she basically only stopped for a while every 2 hours, and the pain on her body had dissipated by a lot. This made her feel much more at ease, and she sharpened the sword in her hand even more patiently. In the night sky, the moonlight was bright. The cold moonlight cast a huge shadow on the ground. That was the shadow of the star stone. Above the shadow, there was a slender figure who was repeating the same action over and over again. A gentle breeze blew, and Chu Liuyue's long hair fluttered slightly. Suddenly, a spark flew. Chu Liyue was stunned. That spark just now was, she pursed her lips, held her breath, and focused. She pressed her hands tightly on the sword and sharpened it on the star stone again. Whoosh! The moment the sword rubbed against the star stone, an extremely bright spark flashed again. Haha! Little girl, congratulations to you. You've finally sharpened the core. Taizu's voice suddenly sounded. Chu Liyue looked at the cloud sky copper sword in her hand and muttered softly. Core. That's right. Now, a part of the core has already been exposed. As long as you sharpen the rest, you can officially trigger Tianlei to forge this sword. Taizu's voice could not conceal his joy. I originally thought that you would need another 2 days to do it, but I didn't expect it to be so smooth. Chu Liyue was very intelligent, and she was also very persistent. She had practically not slept or rested for the past few days. It was no wonder that she had sharpened the core in advance. Hearing Taizu's voice, Chu Liyue also seemed to be infected, and she was faintly excited. Although this could not be considered as a true success in sharpening, it was still a good start, and it also gave birth to some expectations in her heart. She wondered what kind of scene it would be when she truly reforged this sword. She held the cloud sky copper sword in front of her eyes and looked at it carefully for a while. From the tip of the sword to the upper body, there was a clear sparrow blue color. Especially at the tip of the sword, the color was even more dense and pure, and it was faintly flickering with a faint silver light. Chu Liyue suddenly had a strong premonition in her heart. She would definitely successfully forge a top-notch treasure sword. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 610. At this moment, she suddenly felt a strange movement in her dantian. Chu Liyue looked over and realized that the movement was coming from the Black Pyramid. However, it only lasted for a while before quickly dissipating as if nothing had happened. That's strange, she frowned. This thing had always been quiet. Except for the time when it caused a ruckus in the Tianling God realm, it had been very obedient. That movement just now was definitely not her imagination. She suddenly thought of something and looked up at her surroundings. There was nothing on the flattened mountain top. The mountain breeze blew, and the leaves rustled. Apart from that, there was nothing else. She looked around for a while, and after confirming that everything was normal, she retracted her gaze. Could it be that I'm really overthinking? She thought that the boss of the Precious Treasure Pavilion had come just now, otherwise, she really didn't know how to explain this movement. However, the forest was silent. Chu Liyue thought for a while, put this matter aside, and started sharpening her sword again. Every time she sharpened it, a spark would burst out from it. The bright light shone on her face, and her eyes shone brightly. A gentle breeze blew past. The next day, Chu Liyue went down the mountain to 100 Herbs building to get herbs. Chang Wanzhou's body recovered faster than she expected, and the consumption of herbs was self-evident. The ones she bought previously could only last for a short period of time. Therefore, she came to 100 Herbs building today to discuss with them about getting more. As soon as she reached the entrance of 100 Herbs building, a servant immediately greeted her warmly. Miss Chu, you're finally here. Please come in. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Why did these people's attitudes towards her seem to be more eager than before? I'm just here to get some herbs. Why does it seem like something big has happened? Even if I'm a black gold card VIP now, this seems a little too much. The servant had already bowed and invited her in. At the same time, he said, General Manager Yu happens to be upstairs. Would you like to meet him? Chu Luiyue smiled and shook her head. No need. I'm just here to get the herbs I ordered. General Manager Yu is a busy man, so I won't waste his time. After buying all the things in the Yuchi song, she came to the 100 Herbs building to pick some common herbs. She didn't spend much on other things. Although this wasn't a small expense, it was just a drop in the ocean for Chu Luiyue. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard a familiar voice coming from the stairs. I'm more than happy to have Miss Chu here. How could I possibly dislike Miss Chu for wasting my time? Yu Ling walked down the stairs with a smile. God knows that he didn't sleep well last night. He came here early in the morning just to wait for Chu Luiyue. Now that he had finally come, how could he leave just like that? The herbs you requested have already been prepared. I'll bring them to you in a moment. As Yu Ling spoke, his gaze inadvertently swept over Chu Luiyue's hand. That Qian Kuan ring seemed to belong to Master. Yu Ling's eyes twitched. Last time, the universe ring on Chu Luiyue's hand was Jian Fengqi's. Now it was Master's in the blink of an eye. Speaking of which, he was the one who said it, but even he didn't expect that Master would immediately send Yan Qing to deliver the universe ring in person after the news was sent back. Fortunately, he had realized Chu Luiyue's identity yesterday. Now when he saw the ring on her hand, he could still maintain a calm face. Otherwise, he was afraid that he couldn't control his expression. Chu Luiyue looked at him strangely and asked with a smile, I heard that General Manager Yu has always been elusive. But recently, it seems that you often appear here. She had been here 3 times, and she had met him twice. Yu Ling laughed, Miss Chu, after all, I'm the manager of the 100 Herbs building. Where else can I be? He glanced behind Chu Luiyue and asked curiously, why are you here? Why did Miss Chu come here alone today? Where's the young man from before? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows, Wanzhou. He's still cultivating. So I came here myself. Why, General Manager Yu seems to be quite curious about Wanzhou. Yu Ling immediately waved his hand and laughed, No, Miss Chu, please don't misunderstand. It's just that you came here together before, but today you came here alone. I'm a little curious. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly and didn't continue to say anything. Yu Ling asked tentatively, then, the medicinal materials you came here to take today are all prepared for him? Chu Luiyue gave him a meaningful look. Yu Ling seemed to be particularly curious about her. Oh, no, about Chang Wanzhou today, she said ambiguously, partly. Yu Ling was secretly anxious. He originally wanted to take the chance to get some information from Chu Luiyue, but she was watertight, and he could not get anything out of her. He knew that if he continued to ask like this, Chu Luiyue would definitely be suspicious, so he immediately changed the topic. He glanced at her hand, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. He seemed to ask inadvertently, Miss Chu's interspatial ring looks extraordinary. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and glanced at it. It was indeed quite eye-catching to wear this interspatial ring. Anyone with some eyesight could basically see that this thing was extraordinary. However, she still chose to wear it. Hearing Yu Ling's question, she smiled slightly and said, Someone gave it to me. Yu Ling asked with a smile, The person who can give this thing to you must be quite noble, and he should have a close relationship with Miss Chu, right? Chu Luiyue rubbed the interspatial ring on her hand. It was cold to the touch, smooth and delicate. It's my, halfway through her words, she suddenly stopped. Yu Ling was obviously inquiring about her. Could it be that he had heard something, or he had other intentions? Chu Luiyue glanced at him calmly. Recalling his abnormality today, she really felt uneasy. A sentence lingered between her lips for a moment, but she swallowed it back. She smiled at Yuling. It's a gift from a friend of mine. At the same time, in a room on the third floor, Rongxiu slowly let go of his hand. A teacup shattered silently, and spiderweb-like cracks spread all over it. However, for some reason, the teacup didn't collapse, and it still maintained its previous intact appearance. The tea inside slowly flowed out of the cracks, and soon spread on the table, forming a pool of irregular water stains. Yan Qing, who was standing next to him, felt a chill all over her body. She couldn't wait to disappear from here immediately. After a moment, Rongxiu's thin lips curled up slightly, with a faint smile. Friend? Yan Qing closed her eyes in despair. It's over. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 611. Not only did he have Chang Wanzhou to serve him, but now he didn't even have the title of master's fiancé. Yan Qing lowered his head, hoping that his master would treat him as an invisible person. He didn't hear anything, Yan Qing. Rongxiu opened his mouth, his tone cold. Yan Qing hurriedly replied, Yes, master. How long has I been away from the capital? Master, it's been 27 days. Rongxiu frowned slightly. I left the capital on the same day as you, so it should be 27 days since we last met. His tone was still calm, as if he was just talking about an ordinary thing. However, Yan Qing felt that his body was getting colder and colder. He quickly looked up and saw that the puddle of water on the table had silently frozen into ice. He had to bite the bullet and said, Yes. Downstairs. Yu Ling was also stunned when he heard this. Friend? Didn't master say that this was madam? Why did they become friends with Chu Luyue? He struggled to ask, they shouldn't be ordinary friends, right? Such a precious thing. What's wrong with General Manager Yu today? Why are you suddenly so interested in my affairs? Chu Luyue interrupted him with a smile. Yu Ling glanced at her vigilant expression and realized that she seemed to have misunderstood. He really didn't mean anything else. He just wanted to ask a few more questions on behalf of his master. Yu Ling still wanted to defend himself, but he was afraid that he would make things worse in this situation. He could only force a smile and said, Miss Chu, please don't misunderstand. I just asked casually. At this moment, the servant brought the prepared herbs over. Chu Luyue didn't continue to pursue the matter. She took the things and put them into the universe ring. By the way, there's one more thing that I need General Manager Yu's help with today. The herbs that I ordered before are not enough recently, so I want to double the amount on the basis of first. I wonder if General Manager Yu, yes. That's not a problem at all. Yu Ling did not say anything and immediately agreed. Seeing that he had achieved his goal, Chu Luyue did not stay any longer and quickly left. Yu Ling only turned around and went upstairs after her figure had completely disappeared from his sight. Just as he walked to the door of the room, before he even walked in, he already felt an unusually cold aura. Yu Ling raised his eyes and quickly exchanged a look with Yan Qing. There was some sympathy in Yan Qing's eyes. Of all things to talk about with Chu Luyue, he just had to talk about the interspatial ring. Not only did he want to chat, he even wanted to ask who had sent it. Now this was great. He asked such a question. Yu Ling became even more nervous. Sure enough, the conversation just now had been heard by the master. But he didn't expect Chu Luyue to say that. Wasn't this shooting himself in the foot? Master, Yu Ling said in a trembling voice. His back was already drenched in cold sweat. Rongxiu asked softly. Did she ask for more medicinal materials just now? Yu Ling said hurriedly. Yes. Miss Lu Yu said that she wanted twice as much as before. Do the 100 Herbs building have so many medicinal materials? Well, we do have them for now. But according to the amount that Madam wants, we have to find someone to supply them as soon as possible. In fact, most of the medicinal materials were not very expensive and were very common. But a few of them were very valuable and rare. Even if the 100 Herbs building wanted to take out so many medicinal materials continuously, it was actually not that easy. But don't worry, we dare not slack off on Madam's request. We must fulfill it. Yu Ling said solemnly. Rong Xiu's smile deepened. Oh. Yan Qing closed his eyes again. He didn't realize it before, but now he suddenly realized that Yu Ling was really not very smart in this regard. Yu Ling finally realized that something was wrong, and then an idea flashed in his mind. A large part of those medicinal materials were prepared for Chang Wanzhou. Now that she had increased the amount of medicinal materials, it meant that not only was she helping Chang Wanzhou, but she was also doing more than before. Compared to the situation where his master didn't even have a proper title, Yu Ling swallowed hard. He seemed to have taken a few more steps on the road to death. Rong Xiu got up and walked outside. Chu Luiyue walked out of the 100 Herbs building, thinking as she walked. She had a good impression of Yu Ling before, but today was really a little strange. Ordinary people wouldn't ask those questions. As the manager of the 100 Herbs building, how could Yu Ling not know that this was inappropriate? But he still asked. If she hadn't stopped in time, he seemed to have wanted to ask more. I don't know what he's planning to do. Thinking about it, Chu Luiyue came to the place where she sent the letter. She walked in and saw the person who she had asked to help deliver the letter at a glance. She was overjoyed. Perhaps there was a reply. Therefore, she quickened her pace and walked up to the man. She asked, "What's wrong?" "Hello, may I know if there is a reply to the message sent to Country Yaochen?" The man stopped what he was doing and looked at Chu Luiyue. The moment their gazes met, the smile on Chu Luiyue's face froze. This gaze. This is, the man seemed to have realized what she was thinking and said calmly, "I just returned. I haven't tidied up the things yet. Please wait at the side." Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and nodded. Okay. With that, she walked to the side. The man skillfully sorted the letters in his hand and handed them to different people. A man laughed loudly. "Qin Qi. After you came back this time, your efficiency seems to have improved a lot." The man smiled and didn't say anything. The man who spoke seemed to be used to this. He only chuckled and looked away. The others were also doing their own things. The man called Qin Qi had been working silently. After about half an hour, he finally walked towards Chu Luiyue with a letter in his hand. "This is the reply letter." Chu Luiyue took a look. Mu Hongyu's name was written on the envelope. It should be a letter from Pingjiang King and his wife to Mu Hongyu. She looked up at Qin Qi. "Thank you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network." Chapter 612. Qin Qi said, "Miss Chu, you're too polite." Chu Luiyue kept the letter and turned to leave. After taking 2 steps, she suddenly thought of something and turned back to look at Qin Qi. "Oh right, I have some things that I want to send back after packing, but I heard that some things can't pass through heaven's canopy. Can you go back with me and help me check?" Qin Qi looked at the man who spoke earlier. That man waved his hand coolly. "Anyway, you've already finished your work for today. Go with Miss Chu." Now, Chu Luiyue was the most popular person in Xiling. And it was rumored that she was extraordinarily rich. Who didn't want to have a relationship with her? Who knows, he might even be rewarded more than the others. Qin Qi thanked him and walked to Chu Luiyue's side. "Miss Chu, please." The two of them were silent along the way. When they reached the house, Chu Luiyue invited them to the front hall. After confirming that the surroundings were safe, Chu Luiyue turned around and looked at Qin Qi. She quickly walked to him and lowered her voice. "Qihan." Qin Qi's eyes moved slightly as he nodded slightly. "Your Highness." It was indeed him. Chu Luiyue was shocked. "Why are you here?" When she first saw Qin Chi, she recognized that this person was not the one from before. After their eyes met, she was sure that he was not anyone else but Qi Han, who should still be in Yaochen. Qi Han said, "You're alone in Xiling. I was really worried. After receiving your letter, I replaced Qin Chi and returned." Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. You're taking too much of a risk." Qi Han immediately said, "Your Highness, please rest assured." "Don't worry, Your Highness. This subordinate came here after making complete preparations. They definitely won't notice anything amiss." The reaction of the man who praised him today was enough to explain everything. "I know you're very good at this, so there won't be any problems. I'm worried about something else," Chu Luiyue said and rubbed her brows. "Didn't you say that Jiang Yuqing had ordered to capture you at all costs? If they find out, the aura of the 13 guards was special. Anyone who was familiar with them could easily recognize them. It was too dangerous for Qi Han to appear so openly in Xiling under Jiang Yuqing's nose. Your Highness, before I came, I hid my aura. If I stood in front of him, he might not be able to detect me." Qi Han's voice was as calm as usual, but he was confident. Chu Luiyue was dazed. She then realized that Qi Han's body had indeed changed. This change was very subtle, but he had completely got rid of his aura. If she had not been so familiar with Qi Han's eyes, she might not have been able to recognize him so quickly. How did you do it?" Chu Luiyue sized him up and asked in shock. Every cultivator would have a different aura because of the martial arts they cultivated. Jiang Yuqing dared to order a full-scale capture of them and force them out of heaven's canopy because of this. Previously, Chu Luiyue didn't let Qi Han accompany her to Xiling because she was worried about this problem. She didn't expect that. He seemed to be a completely different person now. Qi Han said, "Actually, little Hachi has been studying how to solve this problem for more than a year. Some time ago, he said that he came up with a new prescription that might work. This subordinate then went to look for him to find a medicinal pill, and as a result, it really worked. Everyone in the 13 guards was good at different things. For little 8 to be able to do this, it wasn't strange if he thought about it carefully." Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment and asked, "Are you sure this thing will always work?" Qi Han nodded and said, "Little Hachi thought I was just giving it a try. He doesn't know that I've already found you and come to Xiling. If he knew, he would definitely come over immediately. You did well. Now is indeed not a good time to tell them." Chu Luiyue crossed his arms and pondered for a long time before saying, "Since you're already here, you might as well stay. It's easier to do things with Qin Chi's identity." The 7 colds all agreed. Chu Luiyue's heart calmed down a little as she sat down. He asked casually, "How's the situation in country Yaochen?" Qi Han's expression turned solemn. "Your Highness, everything is fine in the imperial capital. However, Taiyan Academy was ambushed half a month ago and suffered heavy casualties. Now, many students have been dismissed and have gone to other academies." Chu Luiyue was really shocked this time. He suddenly looked up at Qi Han. "How did this happen?" Taiyan Academy was the top academy in country Xingluo. No one dared to offend it. How did it get ambushed and become like this overnight? Qi Han shook his head. Country Xingluo has kept this matter under wraps. There's almost no news. They've been investigating the mastermind, but it seems like they haven't found any useful clues. Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of something and asked, "How's the investigation on Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua?" Qi Han shook his head. "After such a thing happened, everyone is in danger. The investigation has been forced to stop." Chu Luiyue's heart sank. Indeed, someone wanted to stop the investigation. However, she was in Xiling now, so she couldn't find out more. After that, she asked a few more questions and let Qi Han go back. If he stayed here for too long, it would inevitably attract attention. After sending Qi Han back, Chu Luiyue returned to the Chongshu Pavilion. However, as soon as he reached the top of the mountain, he saw Yi Ran running over. Her eyes were bright and she said excitedly, Lu Yu. You have a friend looking for you. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Friend? She didn't have many friends in Xiling. Who could be looking for her? Chu Luiyue asked, who is it? Jian Fengqi? Yi Ranran shook his head vigorously. No. We've never seen him before. He's been here for a while. He's waiting for you. Chu Luiyue walked forward in confusion. Digression, massive updates another wave at noon. Guess how many more there are today? Finally, I waved my hand and beckoned for monthly votes. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 613. Chu Luiyue returned to her residence and met many senior brothers and sisters on the way. Everyone looked at her strangely, as if they were curious and excited at the same time. Little junior sister. You're back. Little junior sister. Someone is looking for you. Seeing everyone's reaction, Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows slightly. This scene was very similar to when Yan Qing came last time. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone was busy preparing for the great sect meeting, it would be even more enthusiastic than the last time. Chu Luiyue greeted them one by one and walked to her door under everyone's burning gazes. The door was open. She walked in. There were 3 men in the room. Yan Qing, who she had just met a few days ago, was standing respectfully with his hands by his side. Chang Wanzhou stood in the middle of the room with his back straight. At this moment, he was staring coldly at the man standing beside the bookshelf. The atmosphere was cold. Chu Luiyue looked over. It was a tall and slender figure. His clothes were whiter than snow and his sleeves fluttered in the wind. Although it was only his back view, she could still feel the cold and noble aura around him. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Her eyes widened slightly and her heart started to beat rapidly. Rong Xiu. Hearing the voice, Rong Xiu turned around and his thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. You, There was a faint and gentle smile on his jade-like face. His pair of phoenix eyes were as deep as the starry night. They were enshrouded in a faint light that made one unconsciously sink into them. It's really him. Chu Luiyue was surprised and happy. She almost couldn't believe her eyes. Why are you here? Didn't he return to Mingyue Tianshan? In the blink of an eye, he actually appeared in front of her. So the friend that Yi Ranran mentioned just now was him. No wonder the senior brothers and sisters revealed such gossipy and curious expressions. Such a monstrous figure would become the focus of everyone's attention no matter where he was. Rong Xiu put down the book in his hand and smiled faintly. I've been busy with something recently and happened to pass by here, so I thought I'd come and see you. Confusion flashed across Chu Luiyue's heart. What was Rong Xiu busy with that he would pass by the West Hill? However, this thought only flashed through his mind for a moment before it was quickly replaced by the joy of reunion. The two of them had only been apart for less than a month, but she felt like a long time had passed. The longing that had been suppressed in the deepest part of his heart seemed to have been torn open and surged out. Rong Xiu saw that there seemed to be a twinkle in her eyes. His heart moved, and he walked towards Chu Luiyue. He stood still in front of Chu Luiyue, looked down, and scrutinized her face. Then, he wrapped his arm around her slender waist and pulled her into his arms. Chang Wanzhou's face turned cold. Just as he was about to step forward, he sensed a dangerous gaze from the side. He looked up. Yan Qing raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at him with undisguised warning in her eyes. What a joke! His master had chased him all the way to the West Hill. It was not easy for him to see the person he cared about the most. Who would dare to stop him at this time? Master, I'll take my leave. Yan Qing bowed respectfully and then walked out. When she passed by Chang Wanzhou, she paused and raised her chin. Chang Wanzhou, right? I heard that you have good strength. Why don't we go out and have a competition? Chang Wanzhou glanced at him coldly, but he did not move. The man in white said that he was Chu Liuyue's friend. However, when he saw Yan Qing, Chang Wanzhou realized that this man should be the one who gave him the interspatial ring. Obviously, he had a special relationship with Chu Liyue. Yan Qing closed her eyes. Why were the children nowadays so insensible? Without saying anything, she directly clamped Chang Wanzhou's arm and dragged him out. Chang Wanzhou immediately wanted to resist, but he found that he could not get rid of Yan Qing's hand at all. He was no match for Yan Qing at all. In this way, Yan Qing directly took him out, leaving him no time to refute. Before leaving, Yan Qing considerately closed the door. Chu Liyue put her arms around Rong Xiu's thin waist and pressed her face against his chest. She could clearly hear the rhythm of his heartbeat. The sound seemed to be transmitted from her eardrums to her heart. Again and again. The familiar cold fragrance lingered at the tip of her nose. The place where they hugged was warm and ironed. Somewhere in the bottom of her heart seemed to be filled in an instant. It was not until she heard the sound of the door closing that she raised her head and took a look. Why does Yan Qing suddenly want to compete with Xiao Zhou? Rong Xiu's long eyelashes moved slightly. Xiao Zhou? Chu Liyue raised her head and looked at him. Yes, the child with short blonde hair just now, Chang Wanzhou. Rong Xiu hugged her tighter, and their bodies were tightly pressed against each other. He leaned close to her ear as if he was bewitching her. Don't think about unrelated people. Now, only me. Immediately, he lowered his head, and his crimson lips fell between Chu Liyue's eyebrows. The slightly cold temperature made Chu Liyue's body tremble slightly. Then, he gradually moved down, and his kisses covered the sky and the earth. Her eyebrows, the corners of her eyes, the tip of her nose, her cheeks, his movements were very light, but they were filled with forbearance and a strong longing for her. He loved and cherished her to the extreme. As if he was treating the most precious existence in the world. Wherever it passed, it seemed to roll up sparks, scorching and scalding. Finally, he kissed her lips. Her legs were weak, so she had to hold him tighter. Her fingers, which were grabbing his clothes, curled slightly, and rubbed several creases on his clothes. Warm breaths intertwined, and she was dizzy as if she had lost her direction. Chu Liyue let out a soft moan between her lips and teeth. It was an extremely unpleasant sound of tenderness and softness. Rong Xiu's heart seemed to be burned by something, and then he finally let her go. He held her waist with one hand and gently stroked her long hair with the other. Chu Liyue looked up at him. Her eyes seemed to be full of autumn water, and her cheeks were flushed. Rong Xiu's fingertips unconsciously rubbed her waist, and then he kissed her eyes. His voice was low and hoarse, like an order, but also like a desire. Don't look at me like that. In front of her, the self-control that he was so proud of crumbled bit by bit. Chapter 6:14. Chu Liyue blinked. Seeing the bottomless abyss in his eyes, she tactfully stopped teasing him. Rong Xiu exhaled softly. He missed her when he couldn't see her, but when he saw her, his longing didn't ease at all. Instead, it became even stronger. Even if she was right in front of him, he still missed her. He sat down and pulled Chu Liyue into his arms. He hugged her from behind and gently rested his chin on her shoulder. Chu Liyue looked at him sideways. After not seeing him for a while, he seemed to have lost some weight. What has he been busy with recently? Rong Xiu. How long do you plan to stay in West Hill this time? Chu Liyue played with his slender and fair hand and asked. Rong Xiu thought for a moment. His voice was still a little lazy and hoarse. Undecided. Chu Liyue was a little puzzled. Just as she was about to continue asking, Rong Xiu took the initiative to speak. That Chang Wanzhou. I haven't seen him before. It seems that he thinks highly of you. Chu Liyue asked. Why do you say that? Rong Xiu raised his sword-like eyebrows slightly. When he heard that I was here to look for you, he acted as if he was facing a great enemy. From the beginning until you came back. If it weren't for Yan Qing just now, he would have continued to stay. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but laugh. Although a certain someone looked calm and collected, but it was so sour. He's my follower now, so naturally, he's especially concerned about my affairs. That child is stubborn. You don't have to take it to heart. Chu Luiyue said and kissed the corner of his lips. He knew you before, so of course he was very wary of you. But from now on, he knows your identity, so naturally, he won't be like that anymore. Rong Xiu looked up with a faint smile. Oh. Who am I? Chu Luiyue looked at his expression and suddenly felt a little guilty. Oh, it's your fiancé. Rong Xiu's smile deepened. Really? But after I came to West Hill, I seem to have heard some rumors. Chu Luiyue thought to himself that this was indeed the case. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You said it yourself, it's all just rumors. I don't even know how the outside world got into such a state. One moment it was Jian Fengqi, the next it was Mu Qinghe. After she heard it, she actually didn't take it to heart at all because it was too ridiculous. However, from the looks of it, a certain someone seemed to mind. She turned around and teased with a smile. If you don't like it, I'll clarify it later. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at her. The corners of his eyes and the tips of his brows seemed to carry a bit of undisciplined nobility. No need. Chu Luiyue was surprised. Rong Xiu was clearly very concerned about this matter. It wouldn't take much effort for her to clarify it. Why did he say that there was no need? Rong Xiu paused and his thin lips curled slightly. I have my own plans. He was indeed concerned about this matter, but he was also very clear about her current situation in West Hill. On the surface, she was famous and had limitless prospects. But in reality, she had also attracted a lot of jealousy and hatred. There were countless pairs of eyes staring at her in the dark now. The slightest movement might attract a wave of unnecessary trouble. Moreover, her status in West Hill now was actually not high. If she were to do such a thing, it would instead seem like she was taking the initiative to scam him. He couldn't bear to do it no matter what. So it was better for him to do these things. Chu Luiyue didn't know what he was thinking, but seeing his lazy expression, she didn't continue to dwell on this matter. She then talked about some things that happened after she came to West Hill. Rong Xiu listened patiently and gently. In fact, he already knew about these things. But now that he heard her say it personally, it was a completely different feeling. It was as if every word suddenly had warmth and power, leaving deep and shallow marks in his heart. He listened patiently and occasionally asked a few questions. One of them was talking with great interest, while the other was listening with great interest. For a moment, it was quite interesting. After a long time, after she finished talking about these things, Chu Luiyue suddenly thought of something and asked, I've always been talking about my matters. Why don't you talk about yours? Is there anything interesting? Rong Xiu smiled faintly and said, my side is as usual. Without you, there's nothing interesting. It's fine not to talk about it. Chu Luiyue's chest warmed. Did he mean, only things related to her were interesting to him? This person, oh, there's one thing that's a little difficult. Rong Xiu frowned slightly and seemed to be in a difficult position. What is it? I came to West Hill in a hurry this time and haven't found a suitable place to stay. Because I don't know how long I'll have to stay here, it's a little troublesome. Rong Xiu rubbed his eyebrows and seemed to be worried about it. Chu Luiyue almost didn't think and immediately said, then you can live in my house. The one I told you about before, the one that the pavilion master gave me? Although it's not big, it's definitely enough for you to live in. It's just that the house is relatively simple. I don't know if you're used to living there. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a loving smile. Of course I'm used to living in your place. Then thank you in advance, Outside the courtyard, Yan Qing and Chang Wanzhou stood facing each other. Chang Wanzhou's clothes were torn and his hair was very messy. His breathing was heavy, and it was obvious that he had just experienced a difficult battle. On the other hand, Yan Qing's face wasn't red and he wasn't out of breath. He was calm and composed. Boy, you're talented, but now, you're still a little inexperienced. Yan Qing crossed his arms and looked down at him condescendingly. Chang Wanzhou was silent for a moment before he said, "One day, I'll beat you." Yan Qing didn't get angry at being provoked. Instead, he nodded with interest. That depends on whether you have the strength and luck. After the battle, even if he didn't like Chang Wanzhou before, he had to admit that this young man did indeed have top talent. As long as he was trained well, he would definitely become a strong person in the future. Such a person indeed has the right to be Ms. Liu Yue's right-hand man if he follows her, but... Master, at this moment, the door suddenly opened. Chu Luyue and Rong Xiu walked out. Yan Qing and Chang Wanzhou immediately looked over. Master, Miss Liu Yu. Yan Qing bowed respectfully. Chang Wanzhou's eyes swept over the two of them and finally fell on their clasped hands. Chu Luyue waved at Chang Wanzhou. Little Zhou, come here. Chang Wanzhou walked to her obediently. Chu Luyue coughed. Rong Xiu is my fiancé. You don't have to be so wary of him in the future. If he comes again in the future, just invite him in. Chang Wanzhou didn't say anything. Little Zhou? Chu Luyue raised her voice. Chang Wanzhou finally straightened his neck and said coldly, got it. Chu Luyue breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. In fact, she also knew that Chang Wanzhou was doing it for her own good. However, he was unsociable and unruly, so it was inevitable that some misunderstandings would occur. These could only be taught slowly in the future. By the way, Rong Xiu will be staying in my house in Xiling City during this period of time. I'll take him to have a look first. As Chu Luyue spoke, she planned to leave with Rong Xiu. Chang Wanzhou hesitated for a moment and didn't follow. Instead, he looked at the sky and turned to return to his room. After a while, he walked out and walked towards Chu Luyue's room. Yan Qing's heart skipped a beat and immediately became alert. However, the next moment, when he saw the situation in front of him, his expression froze for a moment. Chang Wanzhou was holding a rag? Chapter 6:15. Yan Qing rubbed her eyes and looked at it a few times to confirm that she was not seeing wrongly. That was indeed a rag. After a while, Chang Wanzhou carried another bucket of water in and did not come out again. This, Yan Qing pointed in that direction in shock. Miss Liu Yu, he is. Chu Luyue glanced at it and waved her hand indifferently. It's fine. He has to clean this place every day at this time. After cleaning up, he will naturally go back. At first, she refused. This was because Chang Wanzhou cleaned up very cleanly every time. There was really no need to do this every day. Actually, she had tried to persuade him before, but it was useless. In Chang Wanzhou's understanding, this was what he should do, so he was diligent and serious every time. If she did not let him clean, he would even question Chu Luyue if she thought that he did not do well. After a few times, Chu Luyue simply gave up and let him be. Yan Qing, what was wrong with him? On the other side, the moment Rong Xiu came out, he sensed several gazes in the dark around him. His brows twitched slightly, and he held Chu Luyue's hand even tighter. Let's go. Chu Luyue retracted her gaze and nodded. However, before she could take 2 steps, she stopped again and sighed helplessly. Senior brothers and senior sisters, please come out. As soon as she finished speaking, the surroundings fell silent for a moment. Then, a group of people surged out from the room beside them, as well as from all corners. Lu Xiao, who was standing in front, laughed and scratched the back of his head. What a coincidence, ha! This is Rong Xiu. Chu Luyue spoke straightforwardly. Lu Xiao's voice stopped abruptly. He coughed awkwardly and quickly exchanged glances with everyone. He originally wanted to explain to little junior sister, but little junior sister's eyesight was too good. However, Chu Liuyue's next sentence made everyone's eyes light up. He's also my fiancé. This simple and indifferent sentence was like a sudden clap of thunder that fell down. Everyone was curious about Rong Xiu's identity. They didn't expect Chu Liyue to admit it so directly. So junior sister already has a fiancé? Haha. Since he's junior sister's fiancé, he's naturally half a member of the Chongshu Pavilion. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Don't stand on ceremony. Little junior sister, you never told me that you have such an outstanding fiancé. Everyone exclaimed in surprise and praised him. Needless to say, this man in white was the most outstanding person they had ever seen. Judging from his imposing manner, he did not seem to be an ordinary person. Most importantly, although he had concealed his aura, one could still feel a faint trace of pressure from him. His strength was definitely not weak. Such a person was indeed worthy of little junior sister. Chu Liyue knew that if she didn't say it today, her senior brothers and senior sisters would never forget this matter. So, she might as well be frank about Rong Xiu's identity. Then, she introduced these people to Rong Xiu one by one. Rong Xiu had a smile on his face from beginning to end. He greeted everyone gently and politely. His speech and behavior were all the imposing manner of a noble son from an aristocratic family. Everyone's curiosity was finally satisfied, but they also had some faint doubts. Didn't they say that little junior sister's background was ordinary? But whether it was little junior sister or Rong Xiu, they all looked very extraordinary. This noble aura that exuded from his bones was definitely not something that could be raised by an ordinary family. I came in a hurry today and didn't have time to prepare anything for senior brothers and senior sisters. I can only give you a small gift first. Thank you for taking care of you, during this period of time. As he spoke, he raised his finger. Yan Qing. Yan Qing immediately went forward and walked to Yi Ranran to present something. Miss Yi, please accept it. Chu Liyue glanced at it and realized that it was also a universe ring. However, it seemed to be just an ordinary universe ring. It was different from the one Rong Xiu gave her. Yi Ranran was flattered and looked at Lu Jiao and the others in a panic. This didn't seem appropriate, right? Lu Jiao immediately laughed. You're too polite. Lu Yu is our little junior sister. It's only right for us to treat her well. Logically speaking, we should be the ones giving you a greeting gift. Before he could finish speaking, Yan Qing had already placed the universe ring in Yi Ranran's hand. She walked in front of Lu Jiao and took out a second universe ring. Young Master Lu, please. Lu Jiao was stunned. He looked at the universe ring in Yi Ranran's hand, and then looked at the one in front of him. So each of them had one? Rong Xiu said, it's not valuable. It's nothing valuable. Please feel free to accept it. Since he had already said so much, it was not appropriate to refuse. Lu Jiao could only say, then, thank you, little brother-in-law. The corners of Chu Liuyue's eyes twitched violently. She suddenly had the urge to flee. Little brother-in-law? She quickly glanced at Rong Xiu, only to see his calm expression and a smile on his lips. Instead, he was quite satisfied with this address. Senior brother Lu, you're too polite. You, is my fiancé. This is what I should do. Chu Liyue shuddered. Why did he call him senior brother? Rong Xiu, is this really appropriate? Chu Liyue silently pinched the back of Rong Xiu's hand. What exactly was he planning to do? It was just a simple introduction. Why did he make it seem like, in the face of Chu Liuyue's silent accusation, Rong Xiu was indifferent? He held her hand and gently scratched her palm. Chu Liyue was speechless. Then, under her shocked gaze, Yan Qing quickly gave each of them a universe ring. And he did not address each of them wrongly. After that, Rong Xiu said again, I can't stay here today. I can't stay for long today, so I'll have to trouble Senior Marshal Brother Lu to transfer the gifts for the pavilion master, Elder Xia Yi, and the other senior brothers and sisters who didn't come today. After that, Yan Qing indeed gave him some more. Lu Xiao could only agree in a daze. Don't worry, little brother-in-law. I'll definitely give them all. Rong Xiao smiled. In that case, you and I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye. After that, he left with Chu Luiyue and Yan Qing. Everyone watched them leave the mountain in unison. They did not come back to their senses for a long time. What the? Suddenly, a cry of surprise broke out in the crowd. Everyone looked over and saw a man holding a universe ring with a shocked expression. This, Yi Ranran asked in puzzlement. What's wrong? The man swallowed his saliva with great difficulty. Little junior sister's fiancé seems to be extraordinarily rich. Digression, I seem to have an allergic reaction to food. I'll go get some medicine. I'll update from time to time in the afternoon. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 616. Chu Luiyue and Rong Xiao walked all the way down the mountain. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, what did you put in the universe rings that you gave to senior brothers and sisters? Rong Xiao smiled faintly and said, just some things that they can use. Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment. White crystal coins? Rong Xiao smiled but didn't say anything. Chu Luiyue thought to herself that it was indeed so. Giving white crystal coins was basically the most convenient and least likely gift. But, why did you prepare so much? Could it be that before you came, you're now famous in West Hill, and Chongshu Pavilion is also one of the most important sections? It's not that difficult to find out some things. But you gave so much at once, it seems that they're good to you. It's only right to give them a small gift. Seeing that Rong Xiao spoke so casually, Chu Luiyue finally couldn't help but tug at his sleeve. Rong Xiao, tell me honestly, where did you get so much money? If you give me all this money, what will you do? According to her understanding of Rong Xiao, since he had given her money, it definitely wouldn't be a small amount. Not to mention the money that he gave her, Rong Xiao smiled and glanced at her. If you is worried that I don't have money, you don't have to. I can still afford it. Yan Qing followed behind, and the corner of her mouth twitched slightly. Miss Lu Yu actually doubted Master's financial resources. Hearing Rong Xiao's words, Chu Luiyue was slightly relieved. In fact, she also knew that since Rong Xiao was so generous, he definitely didn't have to worry about money. She was just curious about how he did it. Could it be because of the identity of the Holy Sun? They arrived at the house in West Hill City. Chu Luiyue brought the two of them in and said, don't worry. I just moved here not long ago, so I've basically just cleaned everything up. There are a few rooms you can take a look at and choose one that you like. Rong Xiao looked lazy. There's no need for such trouble. This room is excellent. Chu Luiyue turned around and followed his line of sight. That's mine, you want to stay in my room? Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows. Weren't we the same in the past? Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. In the past, it was always him who refused to leave. Seeing through Rong Xiao's thoughts, Chu Luiyue simply gave up struggling. If you want, it's not impossible. I don't usually come back to this place often, so basically, no one will come to disturb me. Rong Xiao did not mind. If she didn't come, he could go. Chu Luiyue stayed with him for a while longer before finally leaving. Jianghu residence. Fourth young miss, this is the Bingji ointment that eldest young master specially asked for from the palace. It is said that as long as you use it consistently for half a month, any wound will not leave a scar. As the maidservant spoke, she carefully applied the ointment for Jiang Yuji. Jiang Yuji leaned against the bed with her eyes closed, not saying anything. The maidservant scooped out a spoonful and gently applied it on her face. Hiss, ah. A sharp pain like an icicle came, and Jiang Yuji cried out in pain. She sat up and slapped the maidservant with the back of her hand. Slap. It hurts so much. What did you do? The maidservant was slapped to the ground. A palm print quickly appeared on her face, and her arm was bleeding. However, she still carefully held the Bingji ointment in her hand, afraid that it would break. If this bottle of Bingji ointment was destroyed, she would not be able to pay for it with her life. This servant knows her mistake. This servant knows her mistake. She quickly got up and knelt beside Jiang Yuji's bed, kowtowing and admitting her mistake. Jiang Yuji looked at her irritably and snatched the Bingji ointment away. Get lost. The maidservant retreated in panic. Yes, yes. However, just as she was about to get up, Jiang Yuji glanced at her from the corner of her eye and saw her pale face hanging down. There were tears on her cheeks, and she looked pitiful. The anger in her heart burned even more. Kneel outside. Slap yourself. He would only stop when his face started bleeding. The maidservant was startled. Fourth miss, why aren't you going? Yes. The maidservant bit her lip and retreated. She knelt outside the door and began to slap herself. Every slap was very hard. The crisp sound of a slap was heard. Jiang Yuji finally calmed down a little. She opened the Bingji ointment and prepared to apply it herself. What are you doing? Before she could do anything, she heard Jiang Yucheng's voice from outside. Eldest young master, this servant did something wrong. How can you behave like this at fourth Mrs. door? You can leave first. Thank you, eldest young master. This servant will take her leave. Then, Jiang Yucheng walked in. This is already the fifth servant you've taught a lesson to in the past few days. When are you going to stop? Jiang Yuji put the Bingji ointment on the table with a bang, her expression ugly. Big brother, did you come here today just to teach me a lesson? I'm the fourth miss of the Jiang family. Is it wrong to discipline a few servants? Jiang Yucheng snorted. Don't think that I don't know. These maidservants didn't do anything wrong. You're the one who kept holding on to them. It's precisely because you're the master that you have to pay attention. If word gets out, others will only say that you're domineering, spoiled, and willful. Jiang Yuji suddenly stood up and quickly walked in front of Jiang Yucheng. My face is already like this. Don't tell me you won't allow me to vent. Jiang Yucheng's expression was cold. Let's not talk about this first. I've already sent someone to investigate what happened that day. Jiang Yuji's hair stood on end under his gaze. She couldn't help but take half a step back. Big brother, did you find out something? Jiang Yucheng sneered. Aren't you the clearest about what happened that day? I've asked you for so long, but you've never said that you caused such a ruckus at 100 Herbs building. Jiang Yuji immediately felt guilty. I didn't do anything. If you didn't do anything, why would 100 Herbs building blacklist you and threaten to stop doing business with you? When this incident happened, many people saw it. It was easy to find out by asking around. Jiang Yuji was speechless for a moment. So what? If he doesn't want to do it, so be it. It's not like this is the only shop in Xiling City that sells herbs. Do they really dare to do anything to me? Seeing that she was still so stubborn, Jiang Yucheng was extremely disappointed. Things had already come to this point, yet she was still so naive, childish, and self-righteous. 100 Herbs building has a deep foundation and a powerful background. Even I don't want to face them head-on. Why are you so bold? Do you really think that you're so great as the Jiang family's fourth miss? Jiang Yuji's expression changed. Big brother's words were too harsh. But before she could speak, Jiang Yucheng continued. No wonder you were followed and beaten up not long after you left. And you still say that you didn't offend anyone? Jiang Yuji finally reacted. Big brother, you mean, that masked man is from 100 Herbs building? Digression, due to sensitive words and other issues, Chapter 613 is in the process of being revised. Everyone, please be patient. Chapter 617. We can't be sure yet, but there aren't many people who would dare to attack you so blatantly. Jiang Yuji couldn't care less about her grievances and anger. She hurriedly said, since we know it's them, then go and arrest them. How can it be that easy? Jiang Yuqing frowned and walked to the side. There's no evidence to prove that they did it. How can we arrest them casually? Besides, you didn't even see that person's face. Who can we arrest? Jiang Yuji was stunned. Then go and investigate. Brother, don't you have a few capable subordinates? The other party dared to be so brazen, which means that they aren't afraid of investigation. Besides, the 100 Herbs building is quite famous in West Hill. How can we investigate just because we want to? That was the largest medicinal herb store in West Hill. Even he had to think twice before making a move. Jiang Yuji reacted for a while and asked in disbelief, then, is this matter over? I was beaten up for nothing? Jiang Yuqing was silent for a moment and asked, I heard that it was Yu Ling who personally ordered someone to invite you out that day? I've seen him a few times before. This person is shrewd and sophisticated. If it weren't for special circumstances, he wouldn't have been so ruthless. Besides, he knew your identity, but still insisted on doing so. It shows how serious the matter is. What did you do that day? Jiang Yuji gritted her teeth and hesitated for a while before saying, I just scolded Chu Luiyue a little. Jiang Yuqing's expression froze. Seeing that she couldn't hide it anymore, Jiang Yuji could only tell Jiang Yuqing everything that happened that day. If they hadn't refused to give me those medicinal herbs, I wouldn't have done that. In the end, it was all Chu Luiyue's fault. After hearing this, Jiang Yuqing's face darkened. She really went to find trouble with Chu Luiyue. More importantly, she went to the 100 Herbs building. Even if she went to find Chu Luiyue for a one-on-one fight, it would be better than this. You've forgotten what I told you before, haven't you? Jiang Yuqing's voice was as cold as ice. Jiang Yuji shuddered. Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration and hurriedly said, That's not right. Brother, this isn't right. I scolded Chu Luiyue that day, but I didn't say anything bad about the 100 Herbs building. But when that Yu Ling heard me scolding Chu Luiyue, he seemed to be angry in an instant. As she spoke, she thought back. The more she thought about it, the more certain she became. That's right. That's it. Previously, when I was buying medicinal herbs, Yu Ling said that they were all prepared for Chu Luiyue and could not be sold to me. When I was talking about this, he was still fine. I remember now. Previously, a few women seemed to have been chased out of 100 Herbs building because they criticized Chu Luiyue. Not only them, but even their family clans were implicated. Later on, they even went to make a fuss, but nothing was done in the end. As Jiang Yuqing listened, his expression gradually became serious. You mean that Chu Luiyue has something to do with the 100 Herbs building? That must be it. Yu Ling also said that because Chu Luiyue was a VIP with a black gold card, Chu Luiyue was not the only customer of the 100 Herbs building. Why didn't such a thing happen before? There was clearly something fishy about this. Jiang Yuqing thought for a moment and hesitated. But didn't Chu Luiyue just come to West Hill? And she was brought here by Mu Qinghe and Jian Fengqi. How could she be related to the 100 Herbs building in such a short time? He paused for a moment, then got up and left. I will investigate this matter personally. During this period, you stay here and don't be willful. Got it. After Chu Luiyue left, she went to Dragon Teeth Mountain. Dragon Teeth Mountain was much bigger than Chong Su Cabinet, and it was also much more lively. When Chu Luiyue arrived at the hall, she saw Jian Fengqi waiting inside. She quickly looked around, but did not see Mu Hongyu. Jian Fengqi said lazily, Hongyu has become my father's disciple and is still cultivating in the Tianya cave. I have already sent someone to invite her, but it will probably take a while. Sit down and wait. Chu Luiyue smiled and took out a letter. Since Hongyu is busy cultivating, I won't disturb her. This is a letter from her imperial father. I'll have to trouble young Master Jian to pass it to her when you return. With that, she walked over and prepared to leave after putting the letter on the table beside Jian Fengqi. Suddenly, a familiar fragrance wafted over. Chu Luiyue sniffed and realized that the smell came from Jian Fengqi. A dark look flashed across her eyes. This ambergris was specially provided by her palace. To be precise, only she and her father used to be able to use it. Although the smell on Jian Fengqi's body was very faint, she was sure that it was the smell left behind by the ambergris. Moreover, the fact that the smell lingered in the air meant that Jian Fengqi had stayed at the place where the ambergris was burned for at least 2 hours. She paused and put the letter on the table. She asked casually, "How is Hongyu doing in Dragon Teeth Mountain these days?" Jian Fengqi waved his bone fan. "I take care of her every day." "Of course she's doing well." Chu Luiyue looked at him in surprise. "Have you been taking care of Hongyu in Dragon Teeth Mountain these days?" Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows. "Of course. I was the one who treated her injuries. She's almost healed now. The medicine I used is much better than what you used before." Chu Luiyue was now a 4th-grade celestial physician. Jian Fengqi's level was higher, so the medicine he refined was naturally better. "I see. Thank you, young Master Jian." Chu Luiyue smiled slightly. Suddenly, her expression changed. What kind of fragrance is this?" Jian Fengqi froze. Chu Luiyue sniffed. "Young Master Jian, do you smell a faint fragrance?" Jian Fengqi looked at Chu Luiyue warily. A cold light flashed in his icy eyes. "Oh, my mother often fiddles with some spices. Maybe it's this smell?" Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. Then, he said with admiration, "The Mountain Lord is really amazing. The Mountain Chieftain's wife is really amazing. This fragrance is even better than the average fragrance. I just don't know how she made it." Jian Fengqi heaved a sigh of relief and looked down. "It's just a normal fragrance, Lu Yu." A shout of surprise came from outside. Chu Luiyue looked back and saw Mu Hongyu walking towards him with a face full of excitement and joy. "Lu Yu. You came to see me?" Chu Luiyue smiled, took the letter, and handed it over. "This is a letter from your father." Mu Hongyu exclaimed and hurriedly opened the letter. Jian Fengqi looked at the two of them and slowly leaned back in his chair. He was too careless. He came back in a hurry and forgot to change his clothes. Chu Luiyue shouldn't be able to recognize the fragrance, right? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 618. Mu Hongyu read the letter carefully several times. Her eyes were slightly red. Chu Luiyue patted her shoulder gently. "Hongyu, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Father and mother know that I'm not only alive, but also cultivating in West Hill. They are overjoyed. They told me to cultivate well. In this world, there was probably nothing more rejoicing than regaining something you had lost." Mu Hongyu handed the letter to Chu Luiyue. "Luiyue, look. My father and mother are saying that they want to thank you." Chu Luiyue took the letter and looked at it. A smile bloomed on his face. "Yes, they can be completely relieved now." Jian Fengqi coughed. Mu Hongyu immediately said, "Oh right. Young master, my father and mother have specially thanked you." Jian Fengqi leaned lazily on the chair. He smiled slightly and said as if he didn't care, "It's nothing. What's there to thank me for?" Chu Luiyue glanced at him. "Pfft, if he really didn't care, why did he cough just now?" "Hongyu, why did you call young master Jian young master?" Mu Hongyu explained, "Oh, because everyone on Dragon Teeth Mountain calls him that. If she kept calling him young master Jian, it would feel a little weird. Therefore, she simply followed suit and shouted the same thing." Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Now that Mu Hongyu was Jian Shai's disciple, she had officially joined Dragon Teeth Mountain. She might stay here for a long time in the future. It was a good thing to quickly integrate into everyone. Chu Luiyue smiled and said, "It seems that you're doing well on Dragon Teeth Mountain." Mu Hongyu smiled brightly. Her almond-shaped eyes were bright. "Yes. The Mountain Master and the others treat me very well. And my cultivation speed now seems to be much faster than before. The Mountain Master said that it's because of my physique. After a while, I should be able to continue breaking through." In the past, her talent was considered outstanding in country Yaochen, but it wasn't considered top-notch, let alone outside. Now that she possessed the faint essence body, the difference was like heaven and earth compared to before. Even in the entire Tianling dynasty, she could be considered one of the most outstanding geniuses. Chu Luiyue was happy to see her happy. "Since that's the case, I'm relieved. Since the letter has been delivered, I will take my leave first." Mu Hongyu was very reluctant to part with him. "I've just arrived and you're leaving already? Then I'll send you off." Chu Luiyue had an idea. "Sure." The two of them left together. The casual smile on Jian Fengqi's face gradually disappeared. He frowned, got up, and quickly returned to his room. After returning, he quickly changed his clothes. With a spark from his fingertips, the clothes immediately burned. Even when the clothes were completely burned, he still felt that something was wrong. "Men. I want to take a bath." On the other side, Mu Hongyu accompanied Chu Luiyue for a long walk. Along the way, the two of them talked about their recent events. Seeing that they were about to reach the foot of the mountain, Chu Luiyue asked casually, "Hongyu, has young Master Jian been on Dragon Teeth Mountain for the past few days?" "Yes. I have to go to his place to get pills every day." Mu Hongyu asked curiously. "What's wrong?" Chu Luiyue shook his head. "Nothing. I just didn't expect him to be so patient." Speaking of this, Mu Hongyu laughed. "Actually, he has no choice. The Mountain Master said that he was too unrestrained some time ago and asked him to stay on Dragon Teeth Mountain and cultivate properly. I heard that the Mountain Master specially found many medical books, and he has been reading them for the past few days." Medical books? There are many celestial physician practitioners on Dragon Teeth Mountain, so there should be many medical books, right? The Mountain Master even specially found medical books for him to read? Mu Hongyu thought for a moment and said, "Yes. It seems to be some unique books or something. Anyway, it's quite impressive." Chu Luiyue lowered his eyes. Medical books? Jian Fengqi was very talented in celestial physician, and he had been studying diligently for so many years. He had read countless medical books. Now, he was looking at unique books. Luyu? Luyu? Seeing that Chu Luiyue did not respond, Mu Hongyu called out to her twice. "What are you thinking about?" Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and smiled. "Nothing. I was just thinking that since young Master Jian is so diligent, I have to work harder. Go back and cultivate well. We'll see you at the sect meeting." Mu Hongyu nodded seriously, unable to hide the excitement on her face. "Okay." When Chu Luiyue returned to the Chongshu Pavilion, night had already fallen. On the way, she met several senior brothers and sisters, who all came up to her and praised her, saying that she had good taste. They also told her to get along well with Rong Xiu and strive to get married as soon as possible. Chu Luiyue was at a loss at first, but then she realized that Rong Xiu's bribe policy had worked. She did not know how many people were in the interspatial ring. Chu Luiyue agreed one by one and finally returned to her room. Chang Wanzhou had already cleaned the room as usual, but he was not there. After a simple tidying up, Chu Luiyue went to the Yanlin Peak again. In the quiet forest, only the sound of the sword rubbing against the star stone was particularly clear. Following her movements, the sparks that were produced every time she polished the sword also gradually changed from the initial orange-yellow to a faint blue. When the color of the sparks was the same as the color of the fetal heart that was polished on the sword tip, Chu Luyue finally changed to the other side and began to repeat the previous steps. After a period of time, Chu Luyue was like before. During the day, she cultivated on Qingyuan Mountain and took care of the herbs. At night, she would be sharpening the sword on Yanlin Peak. Rong Xiu seemed to be busy as well. He only came to see her once and left very quickly. Chu Luyue did not ask any more questions and focused on the cloud sky copper sword. A month's time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of the sect meeting. Digression, also, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 619. The sky was clear and there were no clouds in the sky. Early in the morning, many people in Shilin City headed toward Square Stream. That was where the sect meeting was being held. The so-called Square Stream was located in the wilderness southwest of Shilin City. A few hundred years ago, the location of the Square Stream was still a mountain range. Later on, two powerhouses fought for 3 days and 3 nights, razing all the nearby mountains to the ground and leaving a cross-shaped gully on the vast ground. The gully was deep and gradually widened with the passage of time. Now, it had become 2 intersecting deep rifts. The sect meeting was held here every year. This year was no exception. However, the Great Sect Assembly this time was obviously very different from the past. Because everyone knew very well that the ranking of the sects in Shilin City was very likely to change greatly this time. It was still early, but Square Stream was already crowded with people and was very lively. I heard that the 9-Star Alliance plans to challenge the Chongshu Pavilion this time. If they succeed, the title of Chongshu Pavilion as one of the 4 major sects will fall on the head of the 9-Star Alliance. Haha. I heard that the Sacred Flame Palace also has this plan. Which one of the sects below them isn't eager to make a move? The Chongshu Pavilion now doesn't live up to its name and is no longer qualified to continue occupying this position. Isn't it just a matter of time before it is replaced? Didn't they say that Yuchi Song recruited 2 good seedlings this time? Maybe, you mean that Chu Luyue and Cheng Wanzhou? Hehe, the 2 of them are not bad, but I think it's impossible for them to turn the situation around with just the 2 of them. I wonder which sect will be able to take down the Chongshu Pavilion this time. As time passed, the sun gradually rose. People from the major sects also came one after another. According to the previous rules, besides the 4 major sects, there were 4 more places to participate in the competition. The major sects in Shilin City had already gone through a fierce competition. Only the top 4 winners were qualified to come. They were the 9-Star Alliance, the Sacred Flame Palace, the Destiny Manor, and the Lingyun sect. Without a doubt, the leaders of the various sects had all appeared here today. A portion of the sect's elders and disciples had also come along. Most of the young disciples had the arrogance and pride of geniuses on their faces. Their eyes were filled with excitement and eagerness, as if they had a card up their sleeves. This was because not every disciple of the 4 great sects was qualified to come here. Those who could come here were all top-notch existences in their respective sections. The people from the various sects arrived one after another and exchanged pleasantries with each other. However, their eyes would look to the side from time to time. It was as if they were absent-minded. Many people were discussing this in private. Now that all the major sects are here, only the Chongshu Pavilion is left. Why haven't they come yet? Don't tell me they got stage fright and decided not to come. I heard that there are only a few dozen disciples left in the Chongshu Pavilion. They can't even hold up the stage. There's only 15 minutes left before the start of the competition. If they don't arrive on time, they'll automatically give up. The leader of the 9-Star Alliance, Zhang Hua, laughed and joked. If the Chongshu Pavilion really doesn't come this time, wouldn't it be considered as giving up the position of one of the 4 great sects? As soon as he finished speaking, a deep and powerful voice came from midair. Even if this old man gives up this position, some people may not be able to take it. The originally noisy crowd instantly quieted down, and everyone looked up in unison. They saw several figures rushing over from midair. The one in front was Yuchi Song. Who was he? It was the Chongshu Pavilion. Under the gaze of countless people, Yuchi Song arrived with his disciples. As soon as he landed, Yuchi Song glanced at Jianghu and said calmly, "This old man was just delayed on the way, and someone seems to be eager to take my position in the Chongshu Pavilion?" Jianghu choked and sneered. Strength is respect. If you don't have the ability to protect something, do you blame others for being too strong? The two of them were at each other's throats as soon as they met. The atmosphere instantly froze. Many people looked at each other. It seemed that the Nine-Star Alliance was determined to win this time. They actually went against the Chongshu Pavilion directly. If they didn't have enough confidence, no one would have fallen out so thoroughly. Yuchi Song remained motionless. That depends on whether you have the ability or not. It's not too late to talk about some things after you win. Otherwise, you'll just be a laughing stock. Zhang Hua waved his sleeves angrily. Stubborn duck. I'd like to see who will be the one to make a fool of themselves today. Seeing that the two sides were getting more and more tense, Jian Shai came out to smooth things over. Old Song, you came at the right time. It's time. Shall we start now? Zhang Hua and Yuchi Song both had to give Jian Shai face, so they finally stopped arguing. Jian Shai said, just like before, the Nine-Star Alliance and the other 4 sects will each choose one of the 4 great sects to challenge. The 4 winners will be ranked as the 4 great sects again. As he spoke, he looked at Zhang Hua and the others in front of him. I wonder if you've already decided which one to challenge. The few of them didn't say anything. Jian Shai's eyelids twitched. Then, Zhang Hua glanced at Yuchi Song and sneered, unfortunately, all 4 of us want to challenge the Chongshu Pavilion. None of us are willing to back down, so we haven't decided yet. His tone was full of ridicule, and he didn't hide his contempt for the Chongshu Pavilion. The surroundings were silent for a moment. It was obvious why these 4 sects chose the Chongshu Pavilion. It could be seen how down and out the Chongshu Pavilion was. The current situation was really ugly, especially for the Chongshu Pavilion. It was simply a great humiliation. However, to everyone's surprise, Yuchi Song's face was still calm, as if he didn't take this matter to heart. Even the disciples standing behind him had calm expressions on their faces. Jian Shai looked at Yuchi Song awkwardly. Old Song, I can only leave this to you. Which one do you choose? Having this kind of choice was definitely not something to be happy about. Yuchi Song raised his hand and pointed at Zhang Hua. The Nine-Star Alliance. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Even Zhang Hua was a little skeptical. Jian Shai frowned, are you sure? These 4 sects seemed to be of similar strength, but in fact, the Nine-Star Alliance was the strongest among them. This was not a good choice for the current Chongshu Pavilion. Yuchi Song nodded, I'm sure. Others were about to ride on their heads. If they didn't fight back, the world would really think that the Chongshu Pavilion was easy to bully. Zhang Hua laughed and licked his lips, revealing a smug and arrogant smile. Good. Today, the Nine-Star Alliance will see how strong the Chongshu Pavilion is. Digression, there's one more thing, but it's already very late. It's the same if you read it tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 620. The people from the other sects looked disappointed. Other than the Chongshu Pavilion, the other 3 sects were all powerful. The chances of them winning were very small. Other than secretly envying the Nine-Star Alliance, there was nothing they could do. Soon, the remaining sects also began to compete in groups of 2. Dragon Teeth Mountain vs. Sacred Flame Palace. Purple Shao Sword Sect vs. Tianji Manor. Xianfeng Hall vs. Lingyun Sect. The 8 sects were divided into 4 groups and landed in the 4 areas of the Cross Canyon. Although there was a deep canyon in between, the sects could still clearly see each other's battle situation. The onlookers could freely choose which sect they were interested in and go to the corresponding area to watch the battle. Without a doubt, the Chongshu Pavilion and the Nine-Star Alliance had the most people. After everyone was in position, someone realized that something was wrong. Strange, did Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou not come? Why didn't I see them among the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion? It seems so. The two of them really didn't come. It can't be, the Chongshu Pavilion doesn't have many capable disciples now. Now that they finally have two good seedlings, they actually didn't come. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100. The news that Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou didn't come quickly spread among the crowd. Logically speaking, not all the disciples in a sect would come. This wasn't strange in itself. But the key was that Chu Luiyue and Chang Wanzhou were the first and second in the Wanjing competition. There was no doubt about their strength. It was really strange that they didn't come. Hearing the discussions around him, Yi Ranran couldn't help but tug at Lu Jiao's sleeve and whisper, "Senior brother Lu, do you think Lu Yu and Wanzhou will still come?" Lu Jiao also lowered his voice. Didn't little junior brother say that he would wait for little junior sister to come together? They should come, right? Recently, junior sister has been going to Yanlin Peak. She seems to be sharpening her sword. The yuan instruments they used were either bought, gifted to them by their elders, or obtained by chance. It was really rare to see him sharpen his own sword. Yi Ranran asked worriedly. Let's hope they come. The Nine-Star Alliance has been eyeing us covetously. They definitely won't let go of this opportunity. It was obvious that the Jiao-Xing Alliance would definitely pull them down from the position of the four major sects at all costs during this great sect meeting. Lu Jiao glanced at the people from the Nine-Star Alliance and snorted. If I remember correctly, the two people who made things difficult for you in Xianli Garden were disciples of the Nine-Star Alliance? Yi Ranran nodded and raised her hand to point. It's that tall and skinny man in purple, and that green-clothed woman beside him. Lu Jiao nodded. Don't worry, we'll definitely win this time. When the time came, he would definitely teach them a lesson. All sorts of discussions could be heard. The people from the Chongshu Pavilion and the Nine-Star Alliance each occupied one side, leaving a large empty space in the middle. There were also quite a few people who were standing around to watch the show. Zhang Hua and Yuqi Song faced each other from afar, and the atmosphere was cold. The rules of the competition are the same as before. According to the celestial physician, Xian master, and martial artist, the competition will be held separately. Each competition will send out 9 disciples. 1 point will be awarded for a win, 1 point will be deducted for a loss, and 0 points will be awarded for a draw. After all 27 people have finished competing, they will be judged according to their total points. The one with the highest points will win. Zhang Hua's gaze swept across the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion and sneered. Yuqi Song, can your Chongshu Pavilion still send out 27 disciples to participate in the competition? Who didn't know that the current Chongshu Pavilion had few talents? There were only a few dozen of them. Other than a few who stayed behind to guard the Chongshu Pavilion, the rest were probably all here. Speaking of which, I have to envy you guys on behalf of my disciples. In our Nine-Star Alliance, not to mention the right to participate in the competition, even if it's just a spot to watch the competition, everyone will fight until their heads bleed. It's not like your Chongshu Pavilion, where anyone can come as long as they're not short of arms or legs. Yuqi Song's gaze was extremely cold. It's better not to be too sure about some things. If you guys still lose to us despite having so many people here, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? Enough nonsense, let's begin. At the same time, at Yanlin Peak. On the smooth and tidy mountaintop, a huge black star stone lay across it. A slender woman in red was sitting cross-legged on it, sharpening a sword. She held the sword hilt with one hand and pressed the blade with the other, continuously sharpening it. From beginning to end, she only did that one movement, but every repetition was exactly the same as the previous one. Whether it was the movement, posture, or strength, it was all precise without a trace of error. Every time she moved, sparks would appear at the spot where the sword and the star stone rubbed against each other. Her expression was solemn, and her eyes were fixed on the sword under her hand, as if she would never tire. In fact, she hadn't slept for a day and a night. Since the day before, she had already sensed that this half of the fetal heart was about to be polished out. In other words, as long as she completed the task here, she would be considered to have polished out the entire Quetzal bronze fetal heart. The color of the sparks was gradually changing. The blue color was increasing bit by bit, becoming thicker, and gradually approaching the deep color of the sword. After an unknown period of time, she moved again, and a faint blue flame appeared in front of her eyes. Chu Liuyue's eyes suddenly lit up. Success! Taizu's voice immediately sounded in her ears, "Girl. Get ready, I'm going to trigger Tianlei. Digression, there's nothing today. It's going to be updated at noon tomorrow. Please browse for a better reading experience from AI Network." Chapter 621. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the wind howled. The entire world quickly darkened. The wind stirred the forest, and the leaves rustled. Chu Luyue stood up, held the sword hilt with both hands, and looked up. Her clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. Between heaven and earth, she was the most dazzling fiery color. Her gaze was fixed on the rolling black clouds. The next moment, an almost transparent figure appeared in front of her. It was Taizu. He stood in the air with one hand behind his back. Even though it was just a remnant consciousness, it was still graceful and majestic. His gaze swept past Chu Luyue and finally landed on the cloud sky copper sword, and he nodded with admiration. After nearly a month of polishing, the originally wide and heavy cloud sky copper sword had shrunk by one size. The outer layer of bronze had been completely polished, revealing the peacock blue fetus heart inside. Even under the gloomy sky, it was still deep and pure, glowing faintly. Las, whether the sword is successfully forged or not depends on this. Chu Liuyue's body tensed up, and she nodded with a grave expression. Taizu, please. The next moment, Taizu took a step forward, and his figure shot toward the sky like an arrow. A powerful pressure suddenly surged out from his body. Above the clouds, countless amounts of heaven and earth energy were crazily gathering. In the blink of an eye, it had already formed a vortex. That vortex began to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it swallowed all the surrounding black clouds. Looking from below, it was as if a huge black eye had suddenly appeared in the sky. Dark, deep, and vast. Chu Liuyue's heart skipped a beat. Taizu was only a remnant consciousness now, and he could actually execute such a remarkable ability. Even a stage 9 warrior might not be able to have such an aura. A trace of doubt quickly flashed across her heart. Did Taizu really fail when he tried to break through back then? However, this thought only flashed across her mind. At this moment, the cloud sky copper sword in her hands suddenly vibrated. Buzz! Chu Luyue looked down. On the cloud sky copper sword, there seemed to be a dark blue flame that quickly streaked across. As time passed, the sword began to vibrate even more violently. It was as if it was being strongly summoned by some kind of power, as if it was about to escape from her hands. Chu Luyue clenched his fists and raised his sword high. Her palms were already starting to go numb. Fortunately, after nearly a month of tempering, her physical strength had increased by a lot. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for her to hold this sword. Rumble. A shocking explosion was heard all of a sudden. She looked up. In the sky, a huge black vortex was spinning slowly. And that sound came from within. Amidst the dense blackness, a silver snake-like bolt of lightning was crazily swimming within. Chu Luyue pursed his lips tightly. The force in his body circulated rapidly, as if it was about to boil. In the next moment, the bolt of lightning struck down from the sky with a shocking aura. It was heading straight for Chu Luyue. Whoosh! That bolt of lightning seemed to have torn the void apart. Wherever it passed, a black spatial crack was swiftly drawn out. It was as if an invisible hand was forcefully tearing apart this part of the world. Boom! In an instant, that dazzling silver light landed on the cloud sky copper sword. The light was resplendent. Chu Liuyue's figure, along with half of Yanlin Peak, was almost instantly enveloped by that dazzling light. Chu Liyue only felt her hands tremble. A terrifying energy instantly flowed from the cloud sky copper sword and into her body. Intense pain instantly spread from her hands to her entire body. All the blood, flesh, tendons, and bones in her body felt as if they were being torn apart at this moment. The smell of something being burned could be heard. Blood blisters even appeared on her skin. Charred black and red intertwined. It was a ghastly sight. Chu Liyue clenched her teeth tightly and didn't even cry out in pain. Taizu, who was standing in the sky, frowned. When he saw this scene, he also slowly clenched his fists. You must hold on. Lass. Generally speaking, those who dared to trigger the Tianlei and use their own body as a transition to forge a yuan instrument were true top experts. However, the current Chu Liyue wasn't even a stage 5 warrior. Such an action was actually extremely risky. And the pain that she had to endure was actually far more than others. Whether or not she could endure the first Tianlei would often determine the success or failure of the entire process. As long as she could endure this Tianlei, suddenly, Taizu's expression changed, and he looked up. In the distance, a youth's figure was rushing over from the direction of Qingyuan Mountain. It was Chang Wanzhou. Chu Liyue knew 2 days ago that the polishing of the cloud sky copper sword was nearing its end, so she informed Chang Wanzhou in advance that she was going to forge that sword on Yanlin Peak. And at that time, she had repeatedly warned Chang Wanzhou that no matter what happened, he was not to go near Yanlin Peak. After she was done with her task, she would naturally return. Therefore, Chu Liyue had been polishing the sword for a day and a night without sleeping, while Chang Wanzhou on Qingyuan Mountain stood and watched for a day and a night. Originally, everything was fine, but when he saw the Tianlei descending and directly striking Chu Liyue's body, Chang Wanzhou was shocked and finally couldn't hold back and rushed over. However, Yanlin Peak was already enveloped by the power of the Tianlei. The violent and terrifying power was crazily strangling, and the surrounding trees were all affected and destroyed. It could be said that it was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Chang Wanzhou clenched his fists tightly and quickly mobilized the force in his body. Just as he was about to barge in, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared in front of him. At the same time, a low and deep voice entered his ears. If you don't want to be a burden to her, retreat immediately. Chang Wanzhou frowned and looked up. However, there was a flash of light in front of him, and the wind was blowing wildly. He couldn't see anything, and even the outline of Chu Liyue's figure was very blurry. He was conflicted, and just as he was about to rush forward without caring about anything, the voice sounded again. She is forging the sword for you. Chang Wanzhou took half a step forward and stopped abruptly. A look of shock flashed across his eyes. He had heard Chu Liyue mention this before, but when he saw Chu Liyue being enveloped by the Tianlei, he didn't think of this at all. At this moment, when he heard this sentence, he suddenly realized that the pain and torture that Chu Liyue was going through at this moment was all because of him. Guilt, self-blame, pain, it was as if there was an invisible hand tightly clenching his heart, making him almost unable to breathe. If you come over now, not only will you not be able to help, you will only make her efforts go to waste. Then, all the pain that she is going through will all be in vain. Every word and sentence was like a heavy hammer that smashed into Chang Wanzhou's heart. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Finally, he took a step back. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 622. The power of Tianlei rampaged through Chu Liyue's body, almost tearing her internal organs apart. She clenched her teeth, and the thick smell of blood filled her mouth. Her face was pale, and large beads of sweat fell from her forehead. At this moment, one didn't need to look to know that her palm had already festered. There were dark red bloodstains that flowed down her wrist. However, she still held the sword hilt tightly and didn't let go. She endured the terrifying pain and forced herself to hold on. She used her last bit of consciousness to circulate the force in her body. Waves of force surged from her limbs and bones, smoothing out the power of Tianlei that was rampaging crazily bit by bit and gathering it in her hands again. Then, she poured this force back into the cloud sky copper sword. A stream of light flashed across the body of the sparrow blue sword. Following the refinement of this power of Tianlei, the color of the sword body became even richer and purer. A faint light gradually appeared on the cloud sky copper sword. It was as if a star had suddenly lit up in the dark and boundless night sky. When Taizu saw this, a look of admiration flashed across his eyes. She did it. Chu Luiyue really did it. She used her physical body to withstand the first power of Tianlei. Boom! Another loud sound reverberated through the clouds. Taizu was shocked and suddenly looked up. He saw that in the dark vortex, the second power of Tianlei was rapidly converging. And it was rapidly descending toward Chu Luiyue. How can it be so fast? Seeing this scene, Taizu was so shocked that he lost his voice. Generally speaking, the amount of heavenly lightning that could be summoned to forge a sword was different depending on the forger and the sword. Whether it was 9 or 81, they were all numbers related to 9. 1 was 9, one level. He originally thought that with Chu Luiyue's current strength and the rare sparrow feather bronze embryo heart in the cloud sky copper sword, she should be able to summon 18 powers of Tianlei. Which was 2 levels. But it definitely shouldn't be this fast. Just as Taizu was filled with shock and confusion, the second Tianlei had arrived. It landed heavily on Chu Luiyue's body. The dazzling light once again enveloped the surroundings. Among them, a slender and exquisite figure stood proudly like a pine tree. Taizu stared blankly at this scene and murmured in a low voice, "That's right. This is going to be a big deal." Square Ravine. The Great Sect Conference was in full swing. After a series of matches, the Chongshu Pavilion and the Nine-Star Alliance both had their wins and losses. Most of the disciples of the Chongshu Pavilion were celestial physician, so they were basically guaranteed to win the competition. However, in terms of martial artists, the Nine-Star Alliance was clearly superior. As for the Xian Masters, both sides' disciples' standards were about the same. Therefore, after the comparison, there was actually no difference between the points of the two sides. The match between the two sides became a tug of war. On the other hand, the matches between the other sects were basically one-sided. To be able to occupy the position of the 4 major sects for so many years was enough to prove the strength of the Dragon Teeth Mountain and the other sections. It was extremely difficult to challenge them. It seemed that only the Nine-Star Alliance had a chance of winning against the Chongshu Pavilion. On the arena, the matches continued. Zhang Hua and the others stood at the side and watched coldly. An old man came to Zhang Hua's side and whispered, "Alliance Master, we're almost tied with the Chongshu Pavilion now. Do you think, when should we send those people up?" Zhang Hua sneered. "What's the hurry? There are only so many people in the Chongshu Pavilion. We can tell at a glance how strong they are. They seem to be barely holding on now, but in fact, they've been going all out from the beginning. In the second half of the match, they will definitely be unable to continue. When the time comes, we'll make a move and completely crush them. Let the Chongshu Pavilion think that they still have hope first, and then we'll give them a head-on blow at the end. Only then would they be able to win happily." When the old man heard this, his face was filled with excitement. Alliance Master is wise. The more badly the Chongshu Pavilion lost in the end, the harder it would be for them to make a comeback in the future. Zhang Hua placed his hands behind his back, his expression cold and mocking. After today, there will be no place for the Chongshu Pavilion in Xiling City. Yanlin Peak. Dark clouds covered the sky and covered the sun. The huge black vortex in the middle was spinning slowly. Below it, light flickered on Yanlin Peak, and violent energy spread wildly in all directions. More than half of the forest on the mountain had been destroyed, and it looked terrifying. And in the middle of that ball of light, Chu Luiyue was enduring intense pain and torture. She gathered the power of Tianlei again and poured it into the cloud sky copper sword. After the first successful experience, it was easier to do it again. But this didn't mean that her pain had lessened. On the contrary, every layer of torture on her body was stacking with the descent of Tianlei. Before the old injuries healed, new ones were added. There was almost no part of Chu Luiyue's body that was unscathed. Burn scars were all over her body. Not to mention the internal injuries caused by the violent energy of the heavenly Tao rampaging through his body. Her hands and arms were already bleeding from the inside out. These wounds didn't look big, but they were extremely deep and densely packed. They looked extremely terrifying. Her clothes were already soaked in blood, and even the sword hilt was stained with her blood. But she still held the cloud sky copper sword tightly, and she kept pouring the power of Tianlei into it. Another streak of silver light streaked across the sky. It was refined again. Gradually, more and more stars appeared on the dull and pure sword body, and it became brighter and brighter. The aura around her was also strengthening continuously. Chu Luiyue licked her lips, and the sweet and fishy smell filled her nose, but it made her battle intent even stronger. She looked up. The third Tianlei had already gathered in that extremely dark vortex. Again. She let out a clear shout. At the same time, she raised the cloud sky copper sword in her hand even higher. Taizu, who was standing not far away, only felt that his heart was being clenched tightly, if he had won. Is this girl crazy? Tu Tianlei came down, and she was already seriously injured, but not only was she not afraid, she even seemed to be more excited. Is she not afraid of pain or death? Such a scene made him tremble with fear. And what he was most worried about was that this was just the beginning. According to the speed at which the Tianlei was falling, Chu Luiyue still had a long way to go. Just at this moment, as if it had heard her voice, the third Tianlei came down rapidly. Boom! Chu Luiyue's figure was swallowed by endless power again. If she knew what Taizu was thinking at this moment, she would tell him, Chu Luiyue was not afraid of pain, and she was not afraid of death. Today, this cloud sky copper sword, she was going to forge it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 623. The force in Chu Luiyue's body and the force of Tianlei fought fiercely and tore each other apart. Every inch of her flesh and bones was being tempered again and again. Along with the unforgettable pain, her physical body's endurance was also gradually increasing. As if she couldn't feel the pain, she stood there with her back straight and received the descending Tianlei. The third Tianlei. The fourth Tianlei. The fifth Tianlei. The ninth Tianlei. On the cloud sky copper sword, there were specks of starlight, almost like a galaxy in the night sky. It was dazzling. Pure and clean sparrow blue flames burned quietly on it, almost fusing with the sword. The flames were scorching hot, and the stars were cold. The two extreme forces intertwined with each other, forming an astonishing pressure. A bright lightning-like pattern appeared on the sword hilt. Little girl, this rune contains the power of 9 bolts of heavenly thunder. Taizu's voice could not hide his excitement. Although he was very confident in Chu Luiyue before, he was still pleasantly surprised when he saw this scene. He had not misjudged her. Chu Luiyue had unimaginable perseverance and endurance. With such a temperament, coupled with her astonishing talent and mysterious trump card, her future was limitless. When Chu Luiyue heard that, the corners of her mouth slowly curled into a gratified smile. The torture that she had experienced previously seemed to have become insignificant at this moment. As long as she could succeed, boom. Another loud sound reverberated in his ears. Chu Luiyue looked up in shock, only to see that the dark clouds in the sky had not dissipated. And in the black vortex, another Tianlei had appeared. What? What is that? Chu Luiyue widened her eyes slightly. Taizu coughed. Oh, that? The 10th Tianlei. Chu Luiyue. Didn't you say that there were 9? Ahem, girl, what I said before was at least 9. Chu Luiyue was stunned and thought carefully. It seems. It really is. She had just survived the 9 Tianlei and was so excited that she had forgotten about it. Looking at the silver lightning that was obviously much thicker than before, Chu Luiyue felt his throat go dry. Taizu, does this mean that I still have to endure 9 more Tianlei? Taizu put his hands behind his back and looked up at the sky, trying not to let Chu Luiyue see the guilt on his face. This should be. The corners of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she felt that there was something wrong with Taizu, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. Before she could think too much, the 10th Tianlei had already descended. Chu Luiyue spread his legs apart and bent his knees slightly as he gripped the cloud sky copper sword in his hands tightly. The next moment, a dazzling light instantly obscured her vision. A power that was even more violent than the previous 9 Tianlei spread down along the cloud sky copper sword and entered her body in an instant. Countless bloody wounds instantly appeared on Chu Luiyue's body. Blood splattered everywhere. In an instant, she was completely covered in blood. This time, she finally couldn't hold it in and let out a short and suppressed groan. When Taizu heard that, he was worried and hurriedly looked over. When he saw Chu Luiyue covered in blood and injuries, his expression instantly froze. After passing the previous 9 Tianlei, the power of the 10th Tianlei was indeed much stronger than before. Girl, for some reason, when he saw Chu Luiyue in such a state, he felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if there was something heavy pressing on his heart, or as if there were dense needles constantly stabbing him. He couldn't explain where this feeling came from, but it went deep into his bones and couldn't be shaken off. For a moment, he actually hoped that he could take Chu Luiyue's place and bear this pain. Taizu closed his eyes and frowned. He knew very well what would happen if he triggered the Tianlei to forge the sword. After all, the Long Yuan sword was personally forged by him. Therefore, he had already expected this scene. Especially, when he sensed that the speed of the second Tianlei had far exceeded his previous estimation. He was even more clear about how things would develop. According to his understanding of Chu Luiyue, she could actually survive this round. However, when this scene appeared before his eyes, he realized that he couldn't bear to see Chu Luiyue suffer this torture. He suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and controlled himself to stand on the spot and not make a move. Once he made a move, it would mean that this process would be interrupted. Just like what he had said to Chang Wanzhou before, Chu Luiyue's efforts would all be in vain, and the torture she suffered would be meaningless. Taizu fell into deep thought as he watched. He had been decisive all his life, and it was rare for him to feel such heartache. Could it be that it was because he had spent a lot of time with Chu Luiyue during this period of time that he felt this way? Or could it be because of the Long Yuan sword? Actually, he had already had this feeling before. There seemed to be a subtle connection and familiarity between Chu Luiyue and him. This was also one of the reasons why he was especially close to Chu Luiyue. At first, he thought that the Long Yuan sword had recognized Chu Luiyue as its new master. But now, it seemed that wasn't the case. On the other side, Chang Wanzhou was also looking over. When the light flowed back and forth, he finally caught a glimpse of Chu Luiyue's figure. His pupils suddenly constricted. Chu Luiyue's body was covered in wounds. It was a shocking sight. Because she was wearing red clothes, it was not easy to see the bloodstains. But at this moment, the clothes on her body were almost sticking tightly to her body, and blood kept dripping from the corner of her clothes. It was not hard to imagine how much blood she had lost. Chang Wanzhou's chest rose and fell violently, and the blood in his body was almost frozen. However, his force was surging wildly. His beautiful eyes were already scarlet red. Even he himself did not know what kind of strength he was relying on to restrain his impulse to rush forward. A sentence kept echoing in his mind. She did all this and experienced all this for him. Bang! Vaguely, somewhere deep in his body, something seemed to have suddenly shattered. At this moment, Chu Luiyue naturally did not know about the situation between Taizu and Chang Wanzhou. In her eyes and heart, there was only the cloud sky copper sword in her hand. She kept organizing and gathering the power of the 10th Tianlei in her body, and continued to temper the sword in her hand. The flames on the sword burned even more fiercely. And those stars seemed to be even brighter. The 10th Tianlei. She had finally succeeded in enduring it. Then, it was the 11th Tianlei. Boom! An extremely ferocious power suddenly descended. Chu Luiyue's body finally could not hold on any longer, and she knelt down with a plop. Her knee smashed heavily on the star stone, and there was a dull thud. Chapter 624. Lu Yu. Taizu exclaimed and immediately wanted to go forward. However, after taking half a step, he stopped abruptly. Now. I can't go yet. Chu Luiyue knelt on the ground and pressed the cloud sky copper sword against the star stone. Whoosh! Sparks flew. A crack instantly appeared on the star stone. Chu Luiyue held the sword hilt tightly and supported her body as she slowly stood up. Her movements were very slow. Every time she moved, the wounds on her body would rupture even more. She already didn't know how many wounds she had and how much blood she had lost. She clenched her teeth and crazily burned the force in her body. Shortly after, a silver light swiftly streaked across the cloud sky copper sword. Taizu frowned as he stared at this scene, his heart trembling slightly. Under such circumstances, Chu Luiyue was still gathering Tianlei's force and injecting it into the sword. Just how strong was her willpower? When the silver light flowed from the sword hilt to the sword tip, Chu Luiyue finally stood up. Blood dripped down from her face and into her eyes, causing them to turn scarlet. She roughly wiped away the blood on her face, took a deep breath, and raised the sword again. At the same time, she raised her eyes and looked at the sky, her eyes burning with a crazed fighting spirit. Taizu was shocked. This girl, is she planning to fight to the death? The 12th. The 13th. The 18th. Chu Luiyue's entire body was covered in wounds. The force in her body was almost exhausted. She held on to her last breath and injected the 18th Tianlei's force into the cloud sky copper sword. The second silver pattern slowly appeared on the sword hilt. At this moment, the rough scratches on the sword due to a long period of polishing had already dissipated. It had become smooth, flat, and incomparably sharp. When she waved it gently, she seemed to be able to faintly hear the sound of the sword. Chu Luiyue's gaze slowly swept across it. The entire sword was a dense sparrow blue color. It was heavy and dull, and specks of starlight covered it, adding a touch of brightness to it. Ice and heat, a perfect fusion. A faint pressure was spreading out from above. His momentum was astonishing. A sense of pride and satisfaction welled up in Chu Luiyue's heart. Although this sword could not be compared to the Long Yuan sword, compared to the beginning, it had improved by leaps and bounds. Now that this sword was put out, even hundreds of thousands of white crystal coins might not be able to buy it. Chu Luiyue let out a long sigh and looked up. Since the sword had already been forged, then the heaven and earth anomaly that had been triggered should also dissipate. Chu Luiyue's expression froze for a moment. Because as far as the eye could see, the thick black clouds in the sky showed no signs of dissipating. Dark clouds rolled, and the huge vortex was still spinning slowly. Chu Luiyue felt a strong sense of uneasiness. Taizu? What was going on? Why haven't these dark clouds dispersed yet? A trace of awkwardness flashed across Taizu's face. This is because this sword is not completely completed. Chu Luiyue was stunned. What? Taizu braced himself and said. There's still. Before he finished speaking, a roar suddenly sounded. Boom! The corner of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched violently. To be honest, this sound, she was tired of hearing it. First, it was 9. Then, it was 18. Until now, there was still more. Why was there no end to it? She turned her gaze slightly and saw a silver bolt of lightning appear in the clouds again. Without a doubt, this was a level stronger than the previous ones. If this Tianlei fell on her body, Chu Luiyue was really not sure if she could withstand it. While she was thinking, the 19th Tianlei had already struck down. Chu Luiyue gritted her teeth. She was going to fight. Taizu was originally worried, but he didn't expect to see Chu Luiyue suddenly rush toward the Tianlei. What is she doing? Taizu was so shocked that he couldn't speak. Then, under his shocked gaze, Chu Luiyue jumped up and raised her sword. She actually chose to meet the 19th Tianlei head-on. Boom! The Tianlei landed on the sword, and there was a bright light. Chu Luiyue's figure was once again swallowed by the dazzling light. Lu Yu! Taizu exclaimed. Silver light flashed, and thunder rumbled. Chu Luiyue didn't move from the ball of light for a long time. Taizu was extremely worried and finally decided to make a move. Compared to the sword, Chu Luiyue's life was obviously more important. However, he had just taken a step when he sensed a terrifying aura spreading out from the dazzling ball of light. He paused in his actions. Then, a crimson flame suddenly gushed out of it. The red flame was like an extremely sharp knife, and it instantly cut the ball of light into two. A figure suddenly appeared. It was Chu Luiyue. At this moment, she was surrounded by red flames, and her red clothes and black hair were fluttering. She held the cloud sky copper sword with both hands, and her black jade-like eyes were burning with a biting cold fighting spirit. Vigorous and berserk origin power revolved wildly around her body. Her aura was astonishing. Under the dark sky, she was the only color. Taizu's heart shook violently. How did she suddenly become so strong? Before he could figure it out, he saw Chu Luiyue slowly raise her sword. At this moment, countless streams of light scattered in all directions, as if they were trying to escape. Chu Luiyue's eyes were cold, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of her lips. Trying to run? It's not that easy. Then, the long sword fell heavily. Whoosh! Red flames swept out in all directions. It instantly swallowed the escaping streams of light. Taizu was dumbfounded. Chu Luiyue killed Tianlei's power. Digression, I'm going to eat, and I'll leave at 6 p.m. I won't say that I still have a few updates today. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Wang. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.